chased validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Look, I didn't push the button. Come on, there it goes. All right, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. We have had a lot of stuff happen. Well, not a lot of big things, but we did have a lot of things. And I wanted to touch base on that a little bit. We have the situation with the private jet. Well, not private jet. It's a presidential jet that was a gift uh, from a specific entity. We also had. I just found out that they're going ham with the with the what was I thinking about? Oh, the proprietary stuff that's involving the dealerships. So here's what's going on because it's 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 been a wild a wild weekend staying on top of the information. Turns out that uh, there are some features on some of the newer cars that is allowing law enforcement to, or not law enforcement, but allows dealerships to produce information to law enforcement that compromises your ability to do the things that you do. And it has been becoming a very big topic because right after we covered it on the live, everybody else is talking about how far the dealerships can go with this particular information. And I've been sitting over here thinking to myself, well, I did say that it was going to get reckless. I just didn't think it was going to get this reckless. So here's what's going on. And I was debating on whether or not I was going to like put this in its own show or if I was just going to give it to you guys in a highlight. And I thought to myself, you know what, fuck it, I'll just give it to you guys in a highlight because here on this and that, um, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, I give you guys different information every night of the week to help you guys be successful. And we cover different topics. But while we cover different topics, we do not let the sun rise without going live, and we don't always start on time. And that's why we ask you guys to like, subscribe, hit the notification buttons, reaction buttons while you're here on the live show, and then check out what we got going on in the membership because more often than not, we put a lot of information into the membership on a daily, weekly, or at least monthly basis so that you guys got all the stuff you need to be successful. Now, with that being said, we cover how on Mondays how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money, right? So today being Sunday, we talk about questions and comments from the fans. That's what led me to say, well, let me just do it as a highlight because today would be the day where if you guys got questions and if I've got the answers, I typically provide you guys with those answers to allow you guys to be successful. Now, we do still have a laundry list of comments that we're going to be going through today, but uh, this particular topic, which could have been a Monday topic, was something that I was like, dang, I already got so much stuff to talk about on Monday. I don't know if I have enough time to cover this as well. So I said, let's just go ahead and soundbite it for this afternoon or tonight. Now, what they've got going on is a combination of the uh, biometric scans, retina scans, voice activated controls. Um, you've got cameras, microphones being utilized. You've got, uh, now they've got like vital detection, stuff to that effect. And all of this stuff is leading to a culmination of a handful of things. First and foremost, because your vehicle is GPS, they can tell how fast your vehicle is moving, which means that if your vehicle is moving faster than it's supposed to be going in a regulated zone, because there are speed zones that are set for certain speeds, you could likely get a notification that you've been speeding and potentially have situations where you get a notification of a citation because you can get caught in real time performing the action. But it goes even further because hypothetically, there's scenarios where because there's the onboard camera where they can see what you're doing, they can actually detect when you're not paying attention to the road. So if you're on your phone, it's on camera. It's a culmination of things because texting while driving is a ticketable offense. Video evidence has been accepted as a form of evidence. Audio evidence has been accepted as a form of evidence. GPS location has been accepted as a form of evidence. And these things have happened in different scenarios. And if you put them all together, that means that the data from your brand new 2027, 2028, 2029 can potentially be utilized as evidence in your day to day life. So if you were texting while driving, distracted by your phone calls, having inappropriate conversations that could be linked to crimes while you're inside of your brand new vehicle, that all of that stuff can be documented and then utilized later on to implicate you in some stuff that you wasn't expecting to be implicated in that you actually would have been involved in. So this isn't a frame job. This is like legitimately you got busted because your car is a snitch. That's basically the long and the short of things. Um, but some of the guys that were talking about this brought it to a whole new level because if they partner with law enforcement to reduce DUIs, because this is where the situation got really heavy, they can detect your vitals and determine that your vitals are consistent with intoxication, or at least your vitals are are consistent with not being capable of functioning a motor vehicle, which could lead to law enforcement being notified, and that could lead you to a world of issues. Now, does that mean that they're going to pull you over and just based off of a ping on your vehicle? Probably not. But the likelihood of you being mailed a ticket or getting a notification across the dashboard of your screen or whatever on your car, notifying you that you've been, detected operating the vehicle when you're not supposed to be in a way that you're not supposed to be, they could potentially link you to citations, and then go the extra mile where if these infractions that occur, if you refuse to pay those citations, that they could dismantle your vehicle, not dismantle, but disable your vehicle, because they have that feature where when the car gets stolen, that the manufacturer can shut down the performance of the vehicle. Well, if you put it all together, I can't remember the name of the movie off the top of my head right now, but there's a movie from like the early 90s that was a space age movie. It's all flying cars. The main character was a taxi cab driver, and he was reckless driving. And as he was reckless driving, the car was telling him that he had X number of points on his license. He just got another fine. This happened, that happened. And in real time, if he didn't pay certain fines or, do certain things to eliminate certain penalties, that the vehicle would disable itself. He's already in the air. So uh, uh, if he didn't take care of the problem, the car would stop functioning. He would plummet to the ground. And I think that's how he crashed. But the fact is that that was a sci-fi movie from back in the day that now is being put into action, not necessarily put into action 100%, but the technology exists now that if accumulated in the right package can be put into action. And that's one of the things that I was like, holy shit. James Bond from the 80s with the talking into your watch, Star Trek from the 70s and 80s with the Bluetooth communication with other individuals. All of the stuff that used to be fake in science fiction is now reality. Now we've got the dealerships making brand new vehicles that have the type of technology where your car can implicate you in a crime in the moment that you're committing a crime in the car or talking about the crime in the car. And then the car would snitch on you, and then the police would take action based on the evidence from the car. I was like, oh, fuck all that. So when we were talking about this last week about not buying cars before 2025, specifically because of the $10,000 to $15,000 price hike from tariffs, and then not buying the cars after 2026 because of the proprietary restrictions that prevent you from fixing your car. Now it starts making more sense. One of the other reasons why they're trying to pass legislation to prevent us from fixing our own cars is because anybody who knows about back in the day when we were trying to get rid of those governors and limiters on our vehicles so that we could have unlimited power on or unlimited performance on our vehicles, that we would manually disable certain restrictions on the vehicle in order to get top performance, non-dealership authorized performance on our vehicles. Well, just like back in the day, if you could pull a plug or unplug a switch or watch a YouTube video to reprogram something so that it no longer does whatever that is, and then we drive the car as is, in modern times, if there's something that can monitor your performance in the vehicle and potentially implicate you in a crime, you're going to probably disable that. Well, if they pass a law where you can't do certain things to your vehicle, it's dealership exclusive stuff, they're going to prevent you from dismantling these things. So you're either going to use a car under the terms and conditions of the usage of the car, or you're not. While we were discussing this earlier today, like it is in some way, shape, or form violations of constitutional privilege. It's just the problem that we have. The reason why I say some way, shape, or form is because your constitutional rights to privacy, constitutional rights to not be searched or have your assets seized is limited to your consent. If you sign a contract or click an approved button on an app, if you sign up for a service that violates your rights, because you're paying for the service that is violating your rights. As long as it is listed in the terms and conditions that nobody reads, that it will do things that can be a constitutional rights violation, you will have to deal with the fallout. So if you want that autopilot, you have to understand that the autopilot comes at a cost. If you want that voice activated, it does everything I say behavior, you understand that you're wiretapped with all your conversations. Because if Alexa is going to function when you say Alexa, Alexa has to be scanning the room for your voice the entire time that Alexa is plugged in, so that when you are talking to Alexa, as opposed to talking in front of Alexa, that Alexa knows when to respond, which means that the entire time it is documenting your voice. So if you're having a conversation that you shouldn't have, back in the day, we used to be able to go sit in our car. 2026, 2027, 2028, probably not a smart move. I know y'all watched NCIS where, Gibbs would take somebody into the elevator, flip a switch and shut the power off on the elevator and have a private conversation in the elevator. I mean, yeah, technically there are cameras in the elevator, but if the power goes out in the elevator, there's no power for the cameras. So now we're having a one-on-one conversation in the elevator, right? When your house is bugged, you want to have a private conversation, you go for a drive. Well, if the car is wiretapped by design, ain't no such thing as buying a non-wiretap car. So that led me to say, well, at least in my lifetime, over the next 40 years, I can see myself putting more time and effort into buying cars that are 30 years old. That way, by the time I have no choice but to deal with this bullshit, I should have already been too old to drive, too wealthy to care, or dead. Now, FX Trader says anybody with big money should get a flying car like the what was it, Doria H1X instead of a car in the future. Well, anybody who's got money who is going to be trying to be one of the first people to have the flying cars. They have hover cars out. I think Rolls Royce made a concept car, hovers a little bit off the ground. I know Rolls Royce made one that didn't have a front seat, so it was like all back seat. But in practice, the ultra wealthy stay ultra wealthy because they don't waste their money on stuff like that. When it becomes mainstream in the luxury area, they may get that so that they can save money on chauffeurs, right? Self-flying car. Because ultimately it would be cheaper than a private jet. You know, you get a $150,000 flying car, and now you don't need to have the flying helicopter on deck. You don't need to have the private jet on deck. You don't need to have the hangars for the private jet. You don't need, because all of it is built into one. So I would see when flying cars become mainstream, even for the wealthy, where they're $200,000, $300,000 for flying cars, that they will pick those up because they can pick up one or two of them, and they'll always have, you know, a way to get where they got to go, and they would save a lot of money because they would not have to buy, store, and maintain all of these other amenities to get them from point A to point B in an instant. They could simply just go out to the garage, get into a car, and it takes off with them in it, right? But I wanted to bring that up because I thought, you know, damn, because they're gonna use it as like anti-theft protection because it's bioprint. The car won't open without your fingerprint, without your biometric DNA scan, retina scans, all this other stuff, proximity sensors. Then you have the retina scans and voice commands and all of this other stuff that's utilized to confirm that an authorized user of the vehicle is in the vehicle. That actually could be used against you because they verify who the fuck you are in the vehicle when the vehicle is doing something it's not supposed to do. But the auto assist typically is when you're taking your eyes off the road, the autopilot takes over so that the car is stabilized. But if you're taking your eyes off the road, uh, for whatever reason, It can document what caused you to take your eyes off the road. And if it's something that's a ticketable offense, that information could be either subpoenaed from police or just simply handed over by design. And, it just leads to a world of stuff. Anything that's made for good can be utilized for evil, and anything that's made for evil can be utilized for good. So anything that's made for the benefit of efficiency and simplicity and the ability to allow us to be fucking lazy can be utilized against us, right? Because when we start screaming castle doctrine and all of this other stuff, and we don't want other people to invade our personal space, we also know that we want hands-free everything because we're too lazy to get up and get the remote. We're too lazy to walk up to the device and touch the device and use the device. So hands-free everything. And that hands-free everything comes at a cost. So I just thought that was a good segue. 20 minutes of the show that I'll talk to you guys about before we dove deep into all the rest of the stuff that we got going on. Now, after Monday, what we talk about on Tuesday is different ways to make, save, and invest money. And this Monday, we're going to be talking about how they're making some changes with the money, and I'm going to be giving you guys some ideas as to how to navigate this, because this isn't about evading. This is about preparation, because you have to be sure that what you're doing is on the up and up so that you don't have to worry about the way the new laws are being implemented. Then Tuesday, we talk about different ways to make money, save money, invest money, budget money, different ways to look at it, different ways to make decisions in your personal life that doesn't negatively impact your money as much. And then on Wednesdays, we talk about different countries around the world that we could potentially live in and invest in. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we give you guys information about personal development, self improvement, relationship topics, negotiations, socializations, uh, building your brand, and then raises, promotions, retirement, forced retirement, termination, discussions, how to handle these things on your job. And then we give you guys that further reassurance on how to build your 20 and 30-year plan, why that's so important, and how do you benefit from that. He says the surveillance state is already here and it will get worse. Oh yeah, surveillance state's been here for a while. There are traffic cameras in most states around the country, and a lot of them have traffic tickets by design. But there are also surveillance cameras that don't issue traffic tickets, where we're starting to become just like Asia, where Asia, just about every corner, every location that you can go to in their society has surveillance cameras, CCTV, all over the place. Y'all see it in the K-pop movies, and y'all think, "Oh yeah, that's good plot development." No, they really have cameras just about everywhere. And then in their vehicles, for some reason, I don't know how they managed to get this shit to happen. Probably because they use their vehicles on a regular basis. But their vehicle, and the reason why I don't understand why it happens is because how the fuck does a car stay with power if it's running all the time? But they have CCTV cameras over there that run 24/7 even when the car is not being used. We have dash cams that work when we're driving. They've got over there dash cams that work when the car is sitting stationary. So a crime could happen or an activity can happen, and because there was a vehicle facing that scenario, they can go to the owner of that vehicle and get the dash cam footage. So even when there wasn't a street cam, even when there wasn't a city cam, even if there wasn't a camera on one of the local businesses, if there was a vehicle there with a dash camera on it, they could go and pull the videotape from the dash camera and see what happened during the hours of whatever, when it happened in front of that vehicle. Which I guess probably one of the reasons why it's safer in some of the other countries, because they're heavily monitored. Their freedom of privacy prevents the freedom to act recklessly. But yeah, it's everywhere, and there's people going around and destroying in protest. They're destroying the AI drone monitoring systems that the government's putting up because it's watching what we're doing, where we're going. They've got it on squad cars. I'm covering my license plate with my car in the driveway because I'm like, nah, fuck that. If you pass by, my plates are covered. Now, I can't necessarily get away with that in a public parking lot. I can park the car up against a bush or park it up, back it up and park it up against a building. But It has to be visible to prevent the establishment from towing my vehicle while I'm inside. Now, the odds of it being towed simply because my license plate isn't seen is slim to none because a lot of people don't give a shit. But the average Karen that comes out of nowhere and inconveniently fucks people who doesn't do what they expect them to do would see the vehicle with the license plate not being visible and then report it. And that reporting of it is what causes an unnecessary problem, which then allows for me to now be harassed about the fact that I'm trying to protect my privacy, right? In a parking lot or a parking garage where I'm legally allowed to not have my stuff visible. The alternative is that if they can't identify the owner of the vehicle, they can remove it off of the lot. And they can't identify the owner of the vehicle because they can't run the plates because the plates are not seeable or not visible. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Michael says there are more cameras pointed at you and me than out of space. No, there are more cameras that, you know what's so funny? We have so much quote unquote terrorism attacks that occurs that doesn't get stopped by our local government, where these terrorist attacks are American people attacking Americans. And all of the cameras are pointing at us and watching us for us to not conquer ourselves. There's very little outward observation. Because remember what I told you guys when we were talking about the Iran thing, because that's another thing that's going on. I just want to tell you guys real quick. They signed a memorandum. They didn't sign a peace treaty of any kind. So they signed a document that guarantees that over the next 60 days, unless the negotiations fall apart, that they're going to work on a uh, peaceful resolution to the war that's been happening since February. Wild part is the memorandum is not a guarantee that they're going to come to an agreement. It is just an agreement to have a discussion. So they have a ceasefire. They've opened up the strait while we're having the talk. And I don't know what other amenities have been afforded to the other side, but because the Strait of Hormuz was opened up while they're talking peace, Vance is over there supposed to be talking peace. And if the contract gets signed and everything works out in 2 months, he comes back with a deal on the table. But if in 2 months they still don't agree, that we'll end up back in conflict by the end of August, beginning of September, right? It's not over. It's we just agreed to have a second ceasefire, right? Now, that second ceasefire could start the clock over because even though Congress had ordered for Donald Trump to end the war, the fact is that if Iran starts back up with conflict, or if the disagreements boils down where the United States starts back up with conflict, that would technically be considered on the books a new conflict. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that is because I told you guys before that um, we don't have a nobody can think of off the top of their head, and we've had a couple of weeks to do the research on it since I mentioned it. What U.S. fleet is off the coast of any American border that we can say that we will be protected from an overseas invasion? We don't have any. There's nobody off the coast of New York. There's nobody in the Gulf of Mexico. There's nobody off the coast of California. If if for any reason a sub was to come up and some skeet boats were to zoom to the shore and start whacking everybody on the beach, we would have a 20-minute response time from local law enforcement. National Guard would be 30 to 45 minutes, and the military would be an hour and a half. That's what we got going on. We do not have first response is the American citizens that carry their firearms on a daily basis. That would be the first ones to produce some sort of resistance to a true terrorist attack where we would be actually invaded by another country. We have not been truly invaded by another country in recent history of America. As a matter of fact, since the 60s, I can't recall us ever been invaded by anybody, right? So after and World War II, we were in somebody else's land, in World War II. We didn't have conflict on American soil. We were a part of the conflict on another side of the country. That's what it is. So we don't point cameras at everybody else. We point cameras at us. And I'm like, that's weird that they can track people in their houses through Wi-Fi nowadays. Well, even though your Wi-Fi is a closed system, they can tap into your network and they can look. Michael got it. 1812, when the British burned the White House. That was the last time we were invaded. Paul Revere, was it? The British are coming. The British are coming. That was the last time, right? So since then, since the 1800s, we haven't had an invasion on American soil. Now, American troops have been involved in conflict. It's just never been on American soil. That's the reason why we don't think about war the way other countries think about war. Because when they think about war, it's happening in their backyard. When we think about war, it's a news flash it used to be a headline on the newspaper. Now it's a news flash or a live stream or stuff like that on a podcast somewhere. But yeah, the Wi-Fi, even though it's somewhat of a closed system, the fact is that if your what providers are telling people to do these days is to set up a primary um, Wi-Fi thing and then set up a secondary Wi-Fi thing for the guest. And then you put your TVs and other such smart devices on your guest thing, and then put your primary computer and other such things on your primary thing. And if your and what most people do, they put everything on a primary thing, and then when their friends and family come over, they put the friends and family on the guest one. But if you put your laptop and your well, not your laptop, your TV, yeah, probably your laptop, your TV, your secondary computer, any cell phones that are streaming, all of that other secondary stuff on the secondary guest thing, and then the primary computer that's functioning on the primary Wi-Fi that has all your personal information on it be on the primary scenario, then you'll find that if hacking happens, it's only going to hack one of the Wi-Fi streams at a time. And if your devices are separated, all of the devices that are linked together through Wi-Fi would in fact be impacted. But the devices that are on a separate Wi-Fi channel would not be impacted. So if the TV got hacked, the computer wouldn't get hacked too because they're not on the same thing, right? So yeah, they can get in through the Wi-Fi. They say that you should power off your computers, turn off your microphones, all this other stuff, because as long as your computer is on, your computer can be hacked. And then they can listen to your what's going on in your house and move your cameras around and this, that, and the third. If you don't have anything going on, you don't really have to worry about that. But yeah, they if you were having conversations that probably shouldn't be discussed in public, they would be eavesdropping on those conversations. The safest way to ensure that the device is not monitoring what you're doing is to disconnect it from the Wi-Fi, disconnect it from the internet, and then turn it off, right? That's the only way that you can verify that it is not. Now, the inconvenience of that particular type of security is that you got to go through the trouble of turning it back on and then reconnecting it to the network. But if it's not connected to the network when it's not in use, it can't be utilized without your knowledge to access information that you don't want it to access. Trader says it looks like the president will have to replace the current Iranian negotiators. I thought he replaced the negotiators when he blew up all the leaders that were over there the last time. He said Hitler signed documents with Prime Minister Chamberlain. Oh, Chamberlain, Minister Chamberlain, and World War II started. As Hitler said, it's just paper. It is just paper. The It was a IOU or an MOU, a memorandum, where they signed a contract to agree to discuss putting a stop to the war. The I agree to negotiate is crazy because what they did was they negotiated an agreement to negotiate. Even me trying to talk about it is like it's an oxymoron. It's a double negative because it's like they third party entities talk them into signing an agreement to agree to negotiate. So we negotiated negotiating so that we can have a resolution, hopefully within 60 days. Now, since we don't got a lot of stuff going on besides that, I know we were supposed to be doing some Murder She Wrote as the world turns, Days of Our Lives kind of. Um, I can't believe she did that. Questions and comments from the fans. So we're gonna go ahead and run some of these. We're gonna see what they're like, and then feel free to throw in your 2 cents. There are some learning curves. I know some of these come at a theme, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I do not genuinely decide which ones are going to go in there for the most part. There are a very few that are too inappropriate to put up there, like somebody talking about end of their life. It's like, bro, I don't have a say for that. I'll talk to you about that personally. Uh, Somebody talking about doing something, doing harm to somebody else. Can't put those up there either. Uh, Probably should rethink your position. But beyond that and hate speech questions and comments, like all the rest of it is like whatever comes up first goes into the stream. And I try to get about 7 to 10. If there's a bunch of short ones, 15 different questions and comments, and throw them in here, and we see what we got going on. But if it themes itself, ironically, based on this week's communication, that's just the way it themes. You know, we've had some situations where there was more guys talking than girls. There's been some situations where it's all the ladies bitching. It's just so you got to understand we can learn something new from each one of these scenarios because they're data points, and the data points are the what we turn into because you understand that a hypothesis is going to come from the historical data. Based on historical data, my hypothesis is that this is going to be the outcome of the situation. We test it, we get results, and every time our results match our hypothesis, we start leading closer and closer to a theory. And we can test that theory based on certain parameters. Now, that's just using science to identify relationships and what we're doing here with identifying how we address these comments. But some of them are different, and the ones that are different are newer learning points because whenever we say in general, we're talking about the broader spectrum of society. But whenever somebody is triggered by what's being said, there's always a scenario where the one outlier where this doesn't apply to you will step up in self defense and object to the broader spectrum statement. Usually, and correct me if I'm wrong for those people who got triggered by what I just said. Usually, it applies to the person who's objecting to it, which is why they're objecting to it. They just don't want to admit it to themselves. This is one of those situations where if the shoe fits, wear it. But instead, because the shoe fits, they're going to bitch about the fact that you called out the fact that this shoe only belongs on big feet and I'm not supposed to have big feet. That's the precedence of how people object because we're coming from logic and reason and factual evidence. And since we're coming from logic, reason, and factual evidence, you can disagree with the delivery. You can disagree with how you feel about the information, but there's very few that can come up and bring statistical facts that completely refutes what I said. Matter of fact, real quick, Michael, when we had that discussion the other day about the quantity of people that have to work two or more jobs in a single household, I had definitively acquired even more information that proves that more than half of the population is operating on a two income household whether it's one person with two jobs or two people in with one job in the same household, because they're dividing it into multiple categories where you have married couples, whether it's one man with two jobs and his wife is unemployed or vice versa, or the man and the woman has a job, or you have the other option, which is unmarried individuals, which would be a different category of people that are friends, roommates, dating couples that are not married, and then you have the family dynamic, which that's three different categories, and the one third, which is 33% of them, which is going to be married people, and then there was like another 10% or so of the individuals that were um, um, non-married individuals, and then another 10 or 15% more of family living together, where these are of age adults. So the dynamic is still skewed because the data does not count individuals that are under the age of 18 that are working. So if you have a single parent and you have kids that are 16, 17 that are working to help the single parent take care of the bills, they're not counted in the statistics, but that still happens too in low income families. Now, still means that more than one job is needed to make ends meet. But the 5 to 9% of people who are specifically single, living alone, not sharing a residence with somebody else, is incorporated into the statistic of roommates, because roommates are two single individuals that are living in the same situation. They're not necessarily dating each other, but they're single individuals, and that 10% is incorporated into the 10% of non-married cohabitants. So roughly, when you're not counting the numbers, when you're not counting the same statistic multiple times, you're looking at three different broad spectrum categories that come together to equal about 52 to 55% of individuals that are, or 52 to 55% of households. We can't say individuals. 52 to 55% of households in America that have more than one income, right? And that's going to be one of the reasons why uh, I went back and did extra research just to be sure to see what was going on. And yeah, uh, again, when I made the statement that more than half of the population is requiring multiple incomes, it is true. Now, yeah, more than half of the population that's requiring it is going to be closer to the bottom half of the spectrum, because you got the bottom 25% of people that are financially challenged, making $30,000 a year or less, that's going to need to come together, because if a comfortable financial standard of living is um 70, well, yes, they're saying comfortable standard of living is like 72,000, $73,000 a year. The median income is something closer to 55 or $62,000 a year, where men are making like 57 and women are making 52. um So, women are claiming a wage gap, but they take more days off than men do. So it's not necessarily a wage gap. It's more to the magnitude that you're getting this paid the same amount of money per hour to do the same quantity of work that men do, or less, because even in the workforce, we have some women that traditionally say that that is a man's job, lifting heavy boxes, taking out the trash, this, that, and the third, certain duties on the job that is supposed to be for every person non-discriminatorily. But unfortunately, what happens is that they actually, on the job, like a server might make the cook take the trash out, but the server's a female and the cook's a dude. It's like, well, no, ma'am, your side work is to take out the trash. You're supposed to take out your trash. But if they complain about the wage gap, it's like, if you did what everyone else does, you should get paid the same amount as everybody else. Now, I can't talk about the white collar work, because there might be a financial wage gap there. But in manual labor, blue collar work, I don't really see a wage gap there. I see a lack of compensation for a lack of presence. not even a lack of compensation for a lack of workload. It's a lack of compensation for a lack of presence because men are at work doing overtime. Men don't take off because they're not feeling well because it's part of their cycle. Men don't take maternity leave. Men don't, because we don't have that benefit in the United States. Men don't take time off because something happened with their kids, since the majority of single parents is women, since women take the children from the men and then try to put the men on child support. So the women that are missing time from work due to family and due to personal health concerns are missing time from work that men would choose not to miss, and they would suffer at work in silence instead of taking the day off to deal with that. And that difference is the overtime hours that men get that women won't get. That's not, uh, in my observation, a wage gap. That's just a you didn't show up, so you didn't get paid kind of thing, and you're hourly, not salary, so you couldn't make it up later, right? I don't know. Y'all think about it. Let me know. But that spiraled into a whole different. That's like straw man into a whole different thing. But the whole leg of the nutshell is, as we get started with this, is that I'm going to provide you guys with some insight based on what we hear. I don't even remember what's up here because this was supposed to be information we were supposed to go over last week, but we had such a good discussion last week that I just let the discussion keep going and I just put this off until this week. Um, but feel free to put your 2 cents in. Now, I'm going to ask that those who come in make sure that you keep your comments reasonably appropriate and reasonably structured for a reasonably appropriate topic. As you've seen with Wayne Berry, who came in being negative out the gate, he got banned before Michael could get a chance to put him in timeout. He said, it's Sunday, bring on the horror show. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on.
My former best friend and I are not speaking right now, and I think about the situation a lot. My husband and I were going through the worst time in our marriage this past fall. Truly didn't know if we would stay together. I was also dealing with some heavy health stuff and stuff with my family. I was very closed off from friends and family for months. Our friendship was great. We were very close in high school and we're now in our 40s. We have kids the same age who all spent tons of time together. Her husband and my husband are still very close. We had a very active, funny, and close-knit group chat. Sometime last October, I sent her a message apologizing for being distant and explaining the stuff about how bad my marriage was. She already knew about my healthy and family stuff. I apologized for also not being present because she was going through stuff too. No response. Fast forward a month. She still hasn't gotten in touch. On our daughter's birthday, she sends only him a video message of herself to my daughter. Didn't send it to me or the group chat. He showed it to me thinking nothing of it. I was slightly annoyed that she sent it to only him. And then above that text I see, love you X. Hope you have a great trip. It had been from earlier in the month when my husband was going on a work/fun trip. Meanwhile, she knew I was going to be solo parenting. Other deets that are pertinent. A year earlier, she had sent a text that said something like, I had a dream you needed a cuddle, so wanted to let you know I'm here for you. It was paired with a text about wanting his help to do something for her husband, but it made me furious when I saw it on the same day as the birthday video. Up until a week ago, we are still not talking. Early in the year, she sent him a photo of herself wearing a sweatshirt that referenced his business, and then a couple weeks ago asked him for his private IG so she could send reels. Am I crazy to think this is all super upsetting? Or am I naive to not know she's fishing? She has always said how hot my husband is, yikes, in a friendly, fun way, but my view of it now is different. My feeling right now is that I am super mad. Just because I am still in a really hard place in my life and marriage. Thoughts?
I was waiting on Michael to come in and tell me something, but from what I'm hearing, you are fishing for problems. Now, if you take situations, they don't have to be positive, they don't have to be negative. Eliminate the time distance between each situation, put them all together. You can build a case for any kind of argument. Okay. So if you start with over a year ago, one time, She was wearing his company logo on a sweatshirt that she had, which could be potentially observed as her promoting his business, which is what you're not doing as his wife, right? And then she wants to send him directly because you're pinging it as if she's sending him inappropriate videos or photos. She's not sending a nude. She's not sending photos of her in her underwear. She's not sending photos of herself in her pajamas or any kind of lacy, overly exposed anything. No bathing suits, nothing like that. But because she sent the video to him, because y'all are all friends. You're friends with her husband. She's friends with your husband. You're being a bitch to everyone because you're going through some shit and nobody wants to fuck with you. That's where we are right now, believe it or not. And says no, they're not going to like kick you out of the group because I mean you're married to the husband, but the four of you are the outcast because of your negative behavior. Now they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop treating your husband because you're the one that's being above Killington. Instead, they're just like, whenever she stops being an asshole, we'll start talking to her again. So they're going to be nice to the child because you said she sent the video to the father and the child. Now, if you send a video to the father and the child, you were the only one left out because you were the one being difficult. So he didn't send an inappropriate video just to the husband. Now, back to the IG thing. Modern society is using more Instagram to send stuff back and forth than TikTok or Twitter or Kick or Snapchat. You know, specifically because Instagram has the ability to do more video files. If she is taking a photo of herself promoting his company, she may have been sending him video reels that would also promote his company, which you're not doing as his wife. Um, this is something that you got to really think about. You're mad at her, and red flags are coming up because you're insecure about your lack of performance as a wife, because you see the threat of this woman outperforming you as a wife for two husbands. Because her husband is not warming up to you and your husband's not warming up to you. But she got her husband going good and she got your husband going good too. This girl is doing it, right? I'm just trying to throw it out there. Now you ain't gotta like it, but that's the way it is. Now the other issue that we have is that now you want to fast forward to, oh, the safe trip, love you, X's and O's, and you're gonna say, well, that's inappropriate. Is it though? Because if we've been friends for 20 years, we're like family. If we've been couple friends for 20 years, we're like family. You tell your brother and sister you love them. You tell your brother's sister, or not your brother's sister, your brother's girlfriend or wife that you love her. You know, it is not inappropriate. But because you have been difficult for the last year, nobody wants to talk to you, but they're not going to completely cut you out. You now feel triggered by the fact that she is still being positive with your husband. You're overthinking it. She's not looking for anything extra from your husband because when she was going through a bad time with her marriage, she wasn't sleeping with your husband. But when you're going through a bad time with your marriage, your husband wasn't sleeping with nobody, but everybody managed to get through their marriage and you're the only person being bitter. So it sounds to me like the entire collective is being appropriate and you just are now recognizing that you're being a bad wife and you feel threatened by this woman being capable of doing for your husband what you're not willing to do. And you know that if he benefits enough from another woman, that he will consider replacing you with another woman. And you're afraid of getting a divorce after 20 years, especially since you're in your 40s. Your best years are gone. You're no longer valuable to the dating market. If you got a divorce now, you'd be single for the rest of your life with a child that's not yet 18. financial responsibilities that you can't sustain because the lifestyle that you have is a two-party income lifestyle, which means if you get a divorce from your husband, you have to downgrade your lifestyle to something that you can afford on your own, and it has to be very low because now you're going to go from being just taking care of yourself to taking care of yourself and the child, and you might not get the child support that you want to sustain the standard of living that you want to live at. And that's one of the reasons why you're not going to end up getting a divorce. He wasn't going to divorce you because of exactly that. Because once y'all get married and lifestyle creep takes over, y'all go from renting something that one person can afford to working together and pooling your money together to living a higher standard lifestyle that neither one of you can afford alone, but both of you can barely afford together. So even if he divorced you, he would have to downgrade his lifestyle because he can't afford to sustain this by himself unless he's a single income and you are unemployed. And that dynamic, you really would be fucked because if you left him, you don't even have an income. But if y'all are working together and y'all have a joint income, he can't afford to pay for this place by himself. So he's not going to leave you. And if he's paying for this place by himself, you're not going to leave him either way because you would have to downgrade. So ultimately, y'all going to stay together out of convenience. Y'all can rekindle the love in the relationship. It just requires you, since you were the at fault person that had an emotional distress situation and started negatively treating everybody, which I know that we can say that it's not. I'm going to say it's your fault, but we're also going to say that it was somewhat outside of your control because what we do unconsciously is called misdirected rage. When we're overwhelmed by a lot of stuff, it doesn't matter where the overwhelming stuff comes from. Typically, we project it on the next person that encounters us while we're overwhelmed. So, if we're overwhelmed and a family member comes up or a partner comes up and starts interacting with us while we're overwhelmed with something, we will lash out on them because we're overwhelmed. We don't think about it in the moment. We don't apologize about it after the fact. We don't make it up over time. We just let it go. A lot of times people might recognize they're overwhelmed. I'm not going to go mess with them because they're going to snap at me. They're not going to get a response or an apology or made up or any type of reciprocation, but they're not going to put themselves in that situation where they can get lashed out at. That's going to form an area of distance between you and a relationship that typically develops from resentment and self-preservation. It's a wall that can come down very easily, but it requires the person that caused it, the lashing out, to stop lashing out, find another way to vent their stresses and frustrations, and then go back in a positive sense and start interacting in a positive way with the other person. That tears down that wall of resentment, that tears down that protective shield of self-preservation, and allows for the parties to get back to interacting with one another in a positive way. Now, since your marriage is not, I thought you would have been like, oh yeah, my friend slept with my husband, like we heard a few weeks ago, and then I'd be like, oh damn, I still would have said it was your fault, but that's not what we have here. We just have you not being comfortable with the fact that everybody's getting along without your involvement. And as content as your husband is in your marriage, he has good network with the married couple that y'all have had as friends for the last 20 years. And you don't feel comfortable with the fact that the other guy's wife is treating your husband better than you're treating your husband. Girl, all I can tell you is treat your husband better. Treat your husband better. You seen her promoting his company over a year ago. Find a way to promote his company this year. Take some business cards to work, show them to some folks, you know, find a seminar or a meet and greet that allows for him to be able to get into the room with people that he would not have access to otherwise. You know, find a way to do something to do what she did on a grander scale, which was be helpful to him, be useful to him, right? Because not a lot of women think about that. A lot of women personally believe that they just need to be attractive, potentially produce the sex, and if kids come from the sex, raise the kids. You don't have to raise the kids. Men do a better job of it anyway, but you choose to. And then because you choose to, you then utilize that as because these are my responsibilities. I don't have any other responsibilities. You have a core responsibility to your husband. You have a core responsibility to your boyfriend to become a wife with your husband. And that responsibility is a responsibility that most women fail. Because yeah, a lot of people, the rumor goes around that, the best way to satisfy your man is you know keep him full and then keep him satisfied in the bedroom, right? We could use a hell of a lot more, because a lot of the times guys that put themselves so into their work to make sure that they're bringing all that extra money in don't have organization at the house. They don't have the proper structures at the house, because that proper structure is on the job. You can only do so much. If you've got 40, 50, 60 things that need to be done and you can only accomplish 20 of them at a time, you got 30 things going undone on a regular basis. And cooking, cleaning, and laundry is only three of them. Feeding them, that's only four of them. That's still 26 other things that can be done. That's not the standard stuff that women don't like to do, that can be done to help this man be better at what he's doing. It's just that nobody looks into that. Nobody actually applies to that. But a man is supposed to dig deep into everything that's got going on into a woman, psychologically, emotionally, physically, and try to fix every failure, every shortcoming, every downfall that a woman has going on. And then the man has to do it through the riddles of nothing's wrong. When you can clearly see something's wrong. You crying and I don't know what happened. I don't know what started. I didn't make you cry. I didn't slap you in the face. So I don't know what's going on, but I have to fix it. You know, she ain't talking to me. She's clearly upset. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. I have to fix it. Who? Special shout out to Chris. I don't know who RZA is. Um, but then so because we have to fix what we when we don't know what's going on, we have to dig deep with an unwilling participant to find the information. We have to do an investigation with no forethought knowledge to find out what's going on so that we can fix their problem. Now, when the roles are reversed, men are not going to sit here and say, "Oh, it's nothing." We only say, "Oh, it's nothing," because every time we tell our wives what's going on, they don't want to hear it. So we just stop telling them. When we tell our romantic partner that there is a problem, and she makes the problem about us that we have something negative, that she feels bad because we said something. Now, instead of us fixing our problem, we're mitigating her emotions. In that scenario, we just stop telling her that we have problems. Because if you're going to get upset with me because I told you that I had a problem, and now I have to make you feel better about the fact that I have a problem, I'm not going to tell you about my problems. I'm going to go talk to somebody else about my problems. If I talk to anybody, I'm going to try to resolve my problems on my own, because I can't go to my partner and get the problem resolved with my partner, right? That's a big issue. Now, what women can do is go to their partner and then say, "Hey, partner, do you need something? Can I do something? How can I help you?" You know, the same thing that men do for women. And you guaranteedly, men will tell you, "Hey, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. I've been trying to get this done forever." And that's when you'll start seeing things get done. And if you start applying yourself, your husband will be like, "Man, my wife's a big help," you know. I seen real quick before we move on to the next one. I seen a woman on social media come talk about why do men, when women build them up, move on to the next woman? We be building a man for the next woman. And I'm sitting over here thinking, I've asked this plenty of times before, and not too many women have jumped on here, but how many men can you name where they had nothing when you met them, and they got all kind of stuff now that you done left, and you done left them with everything? How many women performed that Dr. Dre scenario where you built a kingdom, moved on, left your entitlement with that kingdom, and started you a whole nother one? And what I'm referring to is when, Dr. Dre came up, and I do believe it was Death Row Records, and he helped them make Death Row Records, and then he left Death Row Records and built Aftermath, and he left with nothing and built it back up, built up a whole nother company next to it. How many women have done something like that with a man? How many women have got with a man made him better financially, made him better socially, helped him improve his life in ways where when she left, his life was still better than what it was before she met him. How many women can identify how many women can identify one man they did that for, much less more than one man they've done that for? I can tell you the only time I've ever experienced that was with a white woman, but that's only been one time in my life. Because I told y'all the story like a year or two ago where one of the women that I was talking to had got me enrolled into a college back when I was like 27. We broke up before I graduated, but I still graduated twice after that relationship. So I am the person that I am today because of that person. But that person had a change of heart. We didn't even have a fallout. It was just a change of heart. And we agreed to go ahead and separate. But that was after I had gotten already enrolled in a college. And I think I did 2 out of 3 years in college. No, I actually did 4 out of 8 years in college. So I had graduated once with this person. And then after we broke up, I was in a 4 year institution finishing the second time. And I got 3 more degrees after that. After the relationship was over, I didn't just go to college because they put me in a college. I went to college because that's what I wanted to do. But that person helped me get in the door. And that only happened once in 40 years. Everybody before that and everybody after that would only come and benefit from what's here until they left. And statistically, out of a lifetime, if only one person's done that in my life, with all of the interactions I've had over the last 40 years, the odds are very slim. So it's not like the entire populace of single women that get with a guy, they put extra effort into the guy and build the guy up and this, that, and the third, and the guy is better off after her. The average female typically gets with the guy and benefits from being with the guy. And then when she leaves, the majority of the ones that are very, very bitter typically try to destroy the guy when they leave. Now, notice that's not all the women, that's just the very bitter ones that are not leaving on good terms. Those are going to be the ones that are going to try to take everything that they can carry, take everything that they can win in a lawsuit, take everything that their family members can help them carry out of the house, clean out all the bank accounts, leave the dude with just about nothing, if not completely nothing, forcing the dude to start over. Some of them can end up on alimony, some of them can end up with child support, forcing the dude to start over. We were just sitting over there talking earlier today. There was a lot of information that I gone through today, earlier today, where this female lawyer was talking about how Texas has a no fault divorce state. A lot of states are like that since the 1950s. We've covered that no fault divorce state where you don't have to prove why the relationship fell apart, who did what for the relationship to fall apart. So you can divorce on principle. And she claimed, oh, the laws was there to protect the women. Yeah, back in the 1950s, because before that, the only time a woman could get a divorce was when the man was abusive or when the man completely abandoned the marriage, meaning he left her potentially for another woman and she has to figure this out on her own. After a while, there was the ability for us to agree that we're not getting along. This isn't a good marriage. Even though he's here, he's contributing this, that, and the third. I'm still not happy. I don't have to live in a 40-year long lifestyle of unhappiness. I can get a divorce simply because I don't want to stay in this marriage anymore. Once they passed that law, back then, when women were one step away from property, it made sense because it allowed them to start over without having to prove that the marriage was over, right? But in modern society, the mentality of some of the modern women is that they can walk into this relationship being attractive and walk out of the relationship with half of his assets simply because she clocked in, not because she did any work, because she clocked in. I clocked in and I stayed. And the most that she can argue is that during her younger years, she stayed. She allowed for behaviors that she may claim that she doesn't tolerate. But you didn't build the empire. And then the dynamic is now in 2026. The dynamic is now that he has to be financially established first before she gets with him, then the marriage. Then, if it doesn't work, she divorces him. And after a certain period of time, when the divorce kicks in, she gets half of what he built. So if he builds an estate that takes him 45 years to make, then he marries her. 5 years into the marriage, she divorces him. His whole life is gone. She takes half of it. So I, I said in that discussion, what's protecting the men? Because that sets the men up for a death trap. He will get into a situation where he thinks this will be forever and it's only going to be for a season. And right after the divorce, she takes half of his whole life's work. He said, no fault marriage is great, but they should not get any money. I completely agree. I completely agree. If they put the clause into a no fault marriage or a no fault divorce that you can voluntarily quit the marriage the same way you voluntarily quit a job, but you leave with no benefits, because this isn't an unethical separation where the husband did something wrong. You just don't want to be here anymore. The same way it's not an unethical situation where the job is letting you go for something that has nothing to do with your work ethic. You just don't want to be at this job anymore. You can leave whenever you want to with the clothes on your back, but you can't take anything else that he worked for. Oh, yeah, I think that would be fantastic. But if that was the law, less women would want to get married. The reason why the majority of broke women don't want prenups, because it's only the broke women that are objective to the prenups. Because if I get married and have 2 kids with this dude, I need to get the house, the car, the dog, everything of value, and the kids, so that I can get child support, tax deductions from the child support, and alimony. So she'll date a dude that she doesn't like because of the money that he has, have 1 or 2 kids with him, divorce him, and some of them, this is the whole plan. Divorce him, and now we're going to collect a check, and she can spend the rest of her time staying at home, taking care of the kids in his house that he bought and paid for, and then call herself a boss bitch. Now you got some that work a full-time job and get the money from the husband, but that's his house. He's paying for the mortgage. And her excuse is because his kids live in the house. But ma'am, if you didn't have your own house and that was his house, you should have left the children with the house and let him take care of the kids, and you pay him child support. Let him get a nanny or a babysitter or whatever the case may be. You go take your single divorced self and go live in a hotel until you can find your own apartment, and then you pay him child support. Women typically take the kid because of the financial compensation, not because it's her duty to have the kids. Oh yeah, these females, they be wanting a dog too. I done seen so many headlines, and I haven't covered it on the show yet, but I have seen so many headlines where there's emotional distress upon divorce because of during the separation of assets, there is a dispute over the dog. There's a dispute over the dog. There's an emotional attachment to the pets in the family, the same way there's an emotional attachment to the children, which is one of the reasons why men do not, another reason why men do not like dating and marrying single women with children, because the man will establish a bond with the wife. He will establish a bond with the pets, and he will establish a bond with the children that are not his children. Now, when the relationship is positive, he has positive interactions with the children. He has positive interactions with the wife. When the relationship is negative, he can't discipline the children. The children misbehaving out of rebellion. The wife leaves and uses the children as an emotional abuse tactic to make the man suffer because she might be hurt because of whatever's going on in her life. But the fact is that ultimately now he has to sever multiple bonds at the same time, the bond with the wife and the bond with each one of the kids that he has grown to love and cherish as his own, and the bond with the pets that he has grown to love and cherish as his own. Because you have to, pets are like, pets outlast cars, believe it or not. People don't think this. Pets outlast cars. We just talked about this on the show last week when we were talking about how electric cars are supposed to last 25 years, but the average American does not keep the same car for 25 years. We typically barely can keep the car 5 years. Most of us cannot remember the last time we owned the same vehicle for 10 years. And I was talking about that because electric cars don't show monetary value until after you've owned the car consistently from purchase until the 25-year mark where you've had the same vehicle for 25 years. And that's not including the repairs. Most people's car, if they buy it, daily driver usage, might last them 3 to 5 years. Some people might get lucky, 8 or 9 years. Dog lives 12 years. Your car will get into a car crash before your dog dies. You will be on your second car before your dog dies. Matter of fact, I had a different vehicle when I got this dog. I've gotten two more vehicles since I got this dog. This dog is still here. I had one dog that I had since I was in college, right? I got out of college in 2018. It's 2026, right? You understand? These dogs are decades, right? So when you have an emotional detachment that you have to have with these animals, you actually have some divorces that end with custody arrangements with the pets. You have them some of the time, I have them some of the time. It's crazy, but it's true. So the only time to marry a woman with children is if you also have children yourself. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's probably the smartest decision to make, Brady Bunch style. But there only 12% of men get their children in divorce and separation. So 82% of women in separations is gonna have children. So the odds of a man having his own kids being so low puts the largest majority of women that have 3 kids or more with multiple baby daddies, never married or divorced at least once, higher than the number of men that have children, period. Not just single men that have custody of their children, the number of men that have children. Because all of the women that have kids with a man out of wedlock, the majority of the women keep the children. So if the man doesn't stay with the woman, the children stays with the woman, and the man has to go start a life somewhere else and make other kids somewhere else. So usually, a single man with no children is likely going to partner with a woman with children more often than he will partner with a woman without children. Because even though there's an increasing number of women that's not willing to have children or not willing to have children until she's after 35, which increases her likelihood of not having a child safely. The average 18 to 28-year-old, 1 to 2 kids, and closer to 30 years old, 35 years old, 3 kids. And usually, because of the financial economics of our society, the more kids she has, the less likely she's going to be willing to have another kid, unless you're like Nick Cannon, where you've got enough money to pay for 30 kids. You're not likely going to be able to afford a fourth or fifth child. So if she's already got 2 or 3 of them, she's done. Shops closed on this one. So, and these are going to be factors as to why men are less likely to want to date a woman with children. Now, I have no problem with dating women with children personally, but we also, as men, have another stigma that we have to deal with. It is safer for the man who's dating a woman with children to date a woman with boy children because women are very, very, I don't know how to describe it, cruel to men, where men are always stigmatized as some type of creepy, perverted, whatever, whatever. So if she's got a daughter, 8, 9, 13, 15, God forbid, 15, 16, 17 years old, he cannot formulate a positive connection with that child as a parental figure without being stigmatized by society as grooming her in an inappropriate fashion. And all it takes is for a false claim to put that man in prison. It is safer for the man to date a single woman with boys than it is for the man to date a single woman with girls. Even though he would be a fantastic parent, even though he would treat those children like they're his own, because they're not his children, women are going to swear to God, oh, she's able to produce children. He's going to try to have kids with the kids in the house while she's at work, kind of shit. That's not the mentality of the majority of men, but that's how women are going to treat the majority of men. I don't know where they get this background information from as if all men are bad, but men are treated as all men are bad. Women are willing to choose a bear that will maul them before choosing a man that'll protect them. And I don't understand why they have so much trauma in society that hasn't been rectified in therapy. Trader says the state substitutes for Nick Cannon in most cases. That's not true. Nick Cannon make enough money. Nick Cannon paying child support for all of his kids. He got like 13, 14 kids right now. Nick Cannon paid for all of his kids. He make too much money to not pay for all of his kids. He's a multi-billionaire. He make too much money not to pay for all his kids. Matter of fact, with the quantity of money Nick Cannon's sitting on, he ain't got no problem with giving each one of his baby mamas $50,000 a year and still not be broke. But if he giving one of his baby mamas $50,000 a year for childcare, she don't gotta work. She don't gotta work. She can work and live a better lifestyle because if he's giving her $50,000 a year for child support and she's got a $50,000 a year job, she can live an $80,000 or $90,000 a year lifestyle with some kids and not there's more money in the house than what she could ever think about what to do with. And she ain't living in the hood, so there's no complaints there. And that's one of the reasons why he can have 14, 15, 18 baby mamas because who's gonna bitch? She can quit her job and retire off of being a mother till the child is 18. She would likely encourage for the child to stay at the house because as long as that's his child, he's likely to take care of the child. Child be 25 years old, still getting money from daddy because daddy got her like that. And just like if you put your estate under the ownership of the pet, whoever owns the pet gets the money. Whoever's got custody of the child gets the money. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Me and my ex were in a very good relationship for 4 years. We were each other's firsts. He truly was the person I was experiencing life with, and I loved the idea of building a life with him. However, because of college and his sport, he stopped prioritizing me. I also caught him doing sneaky stuff like deleting texts but never found proof of him actually cheating. We broke up because I couldn't take it anymore and he preferred to break up rather than to change. 2 months after the breakup I met a guy and hooked up. Nothing serious, but we are still in contact. We live in different cities. However, my ex started texting me saying he finally realized how much I was doing for him and how he wants to be better. He repeated how he's only ever been with me and how much he misses me. A part of me obviously misses him too and always wished to hear this, but I know if I tell him what I did he will never forgive me. I feel like even if we try it again it would never be the same, right? I've been telling him I don't want to get back together. I just don't think it's fair for him, but I'll also never tell him.
Okay, first let's answer his question. Then we're gonna go in on her. He says, how do single mothers survive before the welfare state existed. Um, I don't have the data to explicitly explain that, but from a hypothetical perspective, before the welfare system started, women would have had to either go back home and live with family and have their family take care of her and a child. Back in those days in the 40s and 50s and 60s, when um, women didn't have as much freedom to work as they do now. Those women that did have jobs would likely leave their children with family members to babysit the child so that the mother could go and work full-time jobs to make the money to pay for the standard of living of the child. The welfare system was probably a lot more strict back in the day in comparison to what it is now. So she still had the alimony from divorce and also the child support from divorce because there were more marriages back in the day than unwed children back in the day. There's more unwed children today than there are marriages. So there's less um, knowing who the father is to seek child support today in comparison to knowing who the father was. We just got a divorce back in the day. Um, so outside of the alimony, the child support, living with family, working a full-time job, those are the legitimate options that I believe would have been the first fallbacks before government stepped in. And because those options weren't enough, the government stepped in and provided subsidies, especially in situations where she either didn't know who the father was or didn't know how to get in contact with the father after she got pregnant and he was gone. Like somebody flew in for the weekend, got pregnant, whatever. Now, the alternative is adult freelance work, where the girls are doing things that are unethical in order to make fast cash. Nightclubs, strip clubs, bottle girls, this, that, and the third, truck stops, and everything to that effect to make fast cash. Those are the options that were out there in the past. Those are the options that are out here today. And the only reason why, special shout out to OG Kicks, it is the way it is today is because it used to be that way in a less structured fashion before technology came out. It is a more or less Jerry Springer show today. Um, Jerry Springer was back in the day, the women were out there just getting pregnant with everybody and not knowing who the baby daddy was because they had more partners in a short period of time than they had uh, pregnancies. So you might have had probably 10, 20, 30 partners in the duration of time that the child was conceived, and any one of them could have been the father's situation. That's where Jerry Springer came from. We had that in the 80s and 90s, the early 2000s. But that was in a generation where we had babies having babies. I don't know why we call the baby boomers the generation before all the children came out, because we had in the 60s and 70s, we had parents at 15 and 16 years old. We had 80s and 90s parents at 15 and 16 years old. So by 2000, we had every 15 or 16 years, you had another generation. So you could be 45 and a grandmother. You could be 60 and a great grandmother. Um, you could be, 75 and a great 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 grandmother, right? Um, which is wild. But these days, one, we have less women having children because they're more abortion ready, Plan B ready, birth control ready, O-ring, all of this other stuff ready. So we have less children being born because the women are killing the kids so that they don't have that responsibility. They're not having less sex. They're actually having more sex. They're just killing the kid before the kid becomes a burden on them. Now, that's, to answer your question, going to lead to less Jerry Springer show today. Because back in the day, people would get pregnant and don't know what to do because they were going to have to give birth to the child and they had two options: give it up for adoption or figure out a way to take care of it. As of late, it's more to the magnitude of kill them off. That's it. It doesn't matter if I can afford to take care of myself or not. If I kill off the child before it messes up my figure, I can keep doing what I was doing last week. And you have some women that can have an abortion multiple times a year. There was supposed to be a limit to how often they get an abortion, but after the third or fourth one, typically it negatively impacts their health in a way where they may less likely be capable of having children in the future. But the first and second abortion that women have with no problem, because they were raised off of the moral compass that that's not a bad thing, and they're raised off of their body, their choice to justify murder. And then women don't want to call it murder, but that's what it is. If a stranger takes out a pregnant woman, he gets charged for two deaths because the child inside of the woman before conception without a birth certificate is counted as an existing life. But the wild part is that when the woman decides to do something negative and kill off the exact same child, it's justifiable. If the child is counted as a crime when the mother is taken out while pregnant, then the child should be considered a crime when the mother takes out the child in an abortion. That's just my universal expectation for the child. It can't be considered a living being when a criminal does something to the child, but then not considered a living being when the mother carrying the child does something to the child. That's not uniform. So to answer your question, no, it's less Jerry Springer today. It's more Jerry Springer because we have more relationship chaos. We have more situationships. We have family members cheating with our spouse. We have more children out of wedlock now than what we had back in the day. We have more of a swingers culture right now than what we have back in the day. But Jerry Springer, oh, Jerry Springer is more like, I'm thinking more like Maury Povich, and Maury Povich was the one that was like DNA test, find out who the father is. But Jerry Springer was like so chaotic, where the social relationships are like out there. They're more swinger style relationships now because everybody has not everybody, but the majority of active people in the dating culture have a roster where you've got the main person you want to be with, that you want to hook up with, and then you have your fallback plan, and then your fallback plan to your fallback plan. And the more attractive the woman is, the more guys that she's willing to rotate out in her roster that she's able to sleep with. The more attractive the guy is, and the more money he's willing to waste on women, the more women that he can have in his roster. But maintaining a roster comes with different dynamics, because with the man, maintaining a roster would be spending more money on more women, and maintaining a roster with the women is going to be sleeping with more guys in a shorter period of time. It might be consistently the same people in both dynamics, where one guy might be paying for the entertainment and standard of living of five different women, but never committing to one, while one woman might be sleeping with five different guys in different days out of the same month, but never committing to one. But the dynamic is that's what they're doing. So they're more freestyle. So the Jerry Springer was more like chaos, where they were fighting each other and setting stuff on fire and beating each other's behinds over wild things. And it's not so much that now. Now it's more like we're agreeing on the situationship, or I'm gonna put you in the friend zone, where we're going to friends with benefits and benefit from relationship level stuff without actually being in a relationship. So if I find somebody better than you, I can always move on without being held accountable for not committing to this relationship. right? But if I can't find anybody better, then I'll just settle with you. Which is like a emotional safety net, that you're my relationship until I can find a relationship I'm looking for. That's like saying the bullshit ass job you got, this is the job that I'm going to keep until I can find a job better than the one that I have. But you're never going to improve yourself to qualify for better. You're never going to change your decision making skills to qualify for better. You're just going to accept the way things are until better comes and finds you. And that's why you're going to have the no title scenario. Because if you're dating this guy until another guy shows up, if that guy's got morals and ethics, if you're in a relationship, he's not going to talk to you. So if you're not in a relationship, you're just sleeping with somebody else, you can say truthfully that you are single but active. The guy might say, okay, well, you're active, I'm active too. Let's become exclusive. That's what the situationship dynamic is like right now. Now, for the lady who was talking about the boyfriend, she claimed that the boyfriend had a certain style of behavior. She didn't like it. She left. He realized how much she did for him when she left, because this was both of their first relationships. Typically, women invest everything they are in their first relationship. One of the reasons why older men are getting younger women, because the women are more cooperative and supportive in the relationship within the first 5 boyfriends that they are seriously involved with. After the 5th boyfriend, they typically don't give a fuck anymore. And 10 boyfriends down the line, they're extremely selfish. More to the magnitude, the fault of the guys that they date, but it's a byproduct of picking the wrong guy 10 times or more. And now you've reached an age and you've reached an experience level where you're going to focus on being selfish. It's about what you want, not about the other person. And then you're going to have the mentality that he has to meet certain criteria so that you guarantee that you get what you want. But you expect any flaws and failures that you have as a person is excluded or exempt from their criteria, because you're not willing to change to meet the expectations of someone else, on a self-preservation factor that when you did try to change to meet somebody else's expectations, it didn't benefit you and it wasn't reciprocated. I completely understand the dynamic. It's just the fact that you're using trauma as a shield for your new relationship. You're letting your past dictate your future, and your future doesn't want your past trauma. And without that trauma being dispelled and worked through, your future relationship will not survive. And you're likely to find yourself either single or in another bad relationship, because in order for this person to accept you with your unresolved issues, your new partner would have to then work through your unresolved issues. And that typically causes your new partner to build resentment, because you're blaming your new partner for stuff that happened before y'all got together. And your new partner is going to end up defaulting in a relationship because they're actually being punished for a past that they were never involved in. Now, the magnitude of her saying that she doesn't want to get back with him because she slept with somebody else, I want to touch base on that. Um, because the issue is, in order for her to, because women are picky, men are not picky. Men will sleep with another woman because she has a pulse. She doesn't have to be very attractive, she just has to be willing, right? um the issue with a woman is that she has to gain trust with the man, build an emotional attachment with the man, trust the man in order to sleep with the man. So if she had a boyfriend, she broke up with the boyfriend, slept with the dude 2 months after the relationship. She was talking to that guy, at least on a platonic level, before the breakup, probably receiving information from that guy that encouraged her to break up with the other guy, with the first guy, with the boyfriend. What that means is, if she told her ex that she slept with another guy, especially if she identifies the other guy, and the other guy so happens to be somebody he remembers, because back in the day she claimed he was just a friend. disregarded it. If he was a friend when we were dating and now he's your current sex partner, that means that you were emotionally working your way out of this relationship long before we broke up. So when she claims, "Oh yeah, if I tell him, he's going to resent me and we're not going to be able to get past that." No, because actually whether you admit it or not, you were cheating on him emotionally before y'all broke up, and that's part of the reason why y'all broke up. You wanted him to be like the other guy. He didn't want to be that way. He wanted to be himself. You didn't like that. You left your boyfriend, got with this other guy, and then found out the other guy wasn't legit. You don't know what to do. You can't go back to the last guy, not telling him the truth, but neither one of you have improved from your breakup. So if y'all got back together, the unresolved issue that occurred before is still going to be there. If the boyfriend does better, that doesn't mean that the relationship is going to be better. Because if he finds out 15, 20 years from now that you slept with somebody else and y'all were on a 2-month break, that's going to destroy the relationship 15 years down the line because men hold grudges. It was before we got married. Doesn't matter. Could have told me back then. We could have worked it out back then, but you kept it a secret, which means the foundation of the relationship is built on a lie. Now, FX Trader has a question. Is it more difficult for women than for men to bond after having multiple boyfriends? Women sustain themselves off of multiple connections, off of emotional connections, multiple emotional connections. So she can have 5, 7, or 9 emotional relationships at the same time, probably more than that. You can actually have 150 people that you have love for, but only one of them you can be in love with at one time. So if we imagine that, she can have 149 emotional bonds that are genuinely lifestyle important to her, but only one of them at a time will be the most important person in her life. So let's imagine it like that. So in a lifetime, you can have about 150 people that you have love for. So let's imagine that you've got your family. So depending on how big your family is, you might have 3, 5, 7, 9 people that you actually care about. Let's say 10, and let's throw in a few best friends from childhood. 10 base that you like, core platonic. I love these people. I put my life down for them. I put my freedom down for them. I go to jail for them. I commit crimes for them. 10. That means that you have about 140 romantic partners that you could potentially get involved with in a lifetime, right? Now, the average person is not living to be 100 years old. We're looking at about 80 people. So you should have approximately 3 people per year that you can have that strong bond with. Doesn't matter if they come and go. What matters is you can add about 3 people per year to having the same level of love and connection that you have with your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, your auntie, your grandma, your grandfather, your niece, your nephew, your 3 cousins. See what I'm saying? So if you can add 3 people a year on average to your stock, we're looking at how many serious relationships you can get into. You can get into one really serious relationship every year and a half. So, um, you stop having the willpower to perform in a committed relationship after the 5th or 6th person, but you don't stop having the capability of having an emotional bond with another person after a while, right? Now, when it comes to men, men are physical. We don't have a lot of emotional bonds. We're here out of duty, right? We're here out of loyalty. We're here out of dedication. So there, even though the statistics are still there, where a man can fall in love or have strong love for 150 different people at the same time, men are more physical. So a man will have a physical bond with another person, more often than he will have an emotional bond. But he can bromance it up. He can have a few dozen male friends, but very few men have 10, 20, 30 male friends. So a lot of guys find themselves finding more emotional bonds with the females that they are in the friend zone with, which are women that they would potentially sleep with and potentially make wives, but for some reason it just didn't work. So while a man might have 100 to 120 women that are just friends out of the 20 women that were failed relationships, only one of those people at a time could he be genuinely in love with at one time. So would it be more difficult for anyone to bond after having multiple relationships? Um, no. What causes you to have difficulty having more bonds is the fact that you start having more emotionless, meaningless bonds, like, say, a sex worker. Both the guys and the girls in the porn industry, more often than not, have emotionless sex, meaning that they're just here because they're getting paid to do it. Now, yes, they can get the dopamine hit. Yeah, they can pop a pill and they can get the erections. Yes, they can perform the deed, but they do not have a true emotional bond with the person. They can, for the moment, establish the type of emotional bond that would allow them to want to have sex again for another video, but not to the magnitude, because this is just a quote unquote job for them, not to the magnitude of saying, I'm going to be exclusive with you. I'm going to build a life with you. They might have 8, 10, 12 partners in one video. They might have one partner at a time and 400 videos. You only can be in love with 150 people over the course of a lifetime. You've had 400 partners, 800 partners, 1,005 partners, 4,000 partners. You're not in love with all of them. The largest majority of them were meaningless. So it'll be harder when you're having meaningless sex to be able to identify and establish meaningful bonds because you're not going to be able to deter or transition from the observation and identity of lust versus love because the feeling is the same. It is perceivably the same. Wanting to smash gives you the same dopamine hit as wanting to spend the rest of your life with this person. So when you smash on a regular basis, more often than you pay attention to how you feel about the person, once you have gotten what you came for, which is to smash, you then can recognize if you still feel the same way about that person. If you smash 3 times, 5 times, you've been smashing for 3 months. After that, if you're used to smashing this person, but you still don't want to go nowhere, then you want to call it love. That's why they call it the honeymoon phase. Because for the first few months, the lust overwhelms everything else. There might be emotion in there, but the lust overwhelms everything else. But once you get used to this person being around, the lust is not the core driver of us staying together. We hook up the first time. If the sex was good, we're gonna keep having the sex, right? But after a while, you start recognizing after we finish sex or before we finish sex, we still got 23 hours a day that we're supposed to be around one another. Or if we're at work for 10 hours a day, we still got 13 hours a day that we're going to be around one another. And if you get on my fucking nerves, I don't even want to have sex with you now. See what I'm saying? So that's going to be what causes more issues in the relationship going forward than having too many frequent sex partners. Can a retired sex worker actually be genuinely in love with you? Yes. Can a retired OnlyFans girl genuinely be in love with you? Yes. But would you really know if they're being genuine since they have been good at pretending for 2,000 other partners? You would never know. They could be with you for the money, or they could be with you for the convenience. They could be with you as a fallback plan because since their reputation has been destroyed by society, if you're the only person willing to accept them and they're looking for that companionship after retirement, they will take what they can get if they don't want to be alone. So are they with you out of convenience or necessity, or are they with you because they want you specifically? You will never know until you stop being convenient. That's when you know. When times is tough and they're bailing you out of a bad situation, if they're your ride or die person, that's when you know that they're there for you, not your stuff, not for convenience, not for necessity. But as long as they've got the free ride, as long as things are easy, as long as they don't have to perform much, you'll never know. But you shouldn't put your life in a destitute position to test them to see if their loyalty will last. Trader says, is it true that statistically the honeymoon phase only lasts about 2 years? Honeymoon phase only lasts 90 days. No relationship has a honeymoon phase of 2 years. It is 90 days is considered the honeymoon phase. The first 90 days of the relationship, you ignore all the red flags. The first 3 months of the relationship, you ignore all the red flags. After that, you start setting ground rules. 6 months of that, y'all are working it out, whether you're arguing, bickering, or working together. In the failed relationships, you guys are like arguing over those ground rules because you start setting your non-negotiable expectations. You start getting pushback. You start negotiating. You start trying to work it out. This will give you a total of 9 months of a relationship. Somewhere in here, you guys start saying, fuck it. Usually the women start trying to find a way out of the relationship. And until they find a way out of the relationship, y'all are kind of stagnant the next 3 months. You're just kind of going through the motions in a relationship now. But then the remaining 6 months, if y'all haven't fixed the problem in that first year, that's that 1 year, 5 months, 6 days. Somebody cheats or somebody finds a new partner, and you start working on the breakup phase for the last 6 months of the relationship, where you have more frequent arguments, more frequent conflict. You don't know what's causing it. But when you argue about why the sugar's still on the counter or why you didn't put a can liner in a trash can, you're arguing over insignificant things because ultimately you are emotionally withdrawing from the relationship. But the first 90 days of the relationship where you guys are interacting with one another more overpowered by lust and desire and less about logic and reason, that first 90 days is the honeymoon phase. Well, at least it's called the honeymoon phase. He said, there is no honeymoon phase with me. I will do what I do, which is actually a lot, and will not change. And I never will put up with unreasonable behavior from a partner. Maybe at your current age, that's the case. But if we think about previous relationships that you've had that lasted more than 4 months, the first 3 months of that relationship, you were putting up with shit that you didn't agree with because this was a new relationship. You had strong feelings. You thought it was going to go somewhere. It didn't. The sex was good, but the relationship didn't go in the direction that you wanted. The majority of good men believe that if you give the relationship enough time, the woman will come around and start being the cooperating partner that we need. A lot of the times, we're in a relationship with a woman where the only thing we expect from her is for us not to be alone. So she has no responsibilities, right? So the sex is extra, it's an added bonus because the only thing we're expecting out of the relationship is to not be alone. She doesn't have any responsibilities. She doesn't have to help us grow. She doesn't have to keep us organized. She doesn't have to keep us alive. All she has to do is just be there so that we're not alone. In those types of relationships, she doesn't have a performance matrix to adhere to. But the man has a performance matrix to adhere to every single time. As a result, if you don't do what she wants you to do inside of the first 3 months, y'all end up breaking up 4 to 6 months into the relationship because you didn't perform enough. And what a lot of men will do is they will blame themselves for not being a good enough boyfriend for the girl when it wasn't that case. It was the fact that you had no standards in the relationship. He was asking for too much. You ignored this, which is a red flag because she was asking for more than what you were able to provide. And because you couldn't meet that dynamic on a consistent basis after the first 90 days, after the first 4 months, y'all broke up. So there is, in fact, a portion of the relationship, the beginning portion of the relationship, where you ignore certain facts about the relationship that would otherwise have warned you about this relationship not being a long lasting relationship that you would have otherwise not gotten yourself involved in. Now, if we look back at a lot of the relationships that we got involved in, we weigh the odds of the emotional distress that we went through versus the good sex that we had. Some would decide I wouldn't change a thing. Some would decide I probably would not have dated that person if I knew it would have ended like that, which means we would have had less options. We would have had less opportunities as men because it takes a lot for a man to find a girl that will say yes. Doesn't take a lot for a woman to find a guy to say yes. It takes a lot for a man to find a girl that will say yes. So even if it ends in catastrophic failure, at least she said yes, and at least we had for a short period of time. And that mentality is the reason why there is such thing as a phase in a relationship that's identified as the honeymoon phase because it's the early stages of the relationship that is allowed to be the most catastrophic because nobody's planning anything, nobody's organized, nobody's preparing anything. We're just enjoying each other's company. That's it. We're enjoying each other's company, potentially having a lot of good sex. That's what's identified as the honeymoon phase. Now, when Trader was referring to about the first 2 years, you're talking about the first 2 years of a marriage. About the first 2 years of a marriage. Out of a 20-year marriage, first 2 years where you're working things out, where we're going to live, where we're going to put the kids. Sometimes the marriage might start off good the first 6 months, first year, first 2 years, because for the most part, after the marriage, if it's not a shotgun marriage or an eloping in Vegas kind of situation, y'all already put up with each other's bullshit before the marriage. So now you're just going through the motions of dating with a wedding ring on. So the first 2 years might be fine. Y'all were dating for 3 years or dating for 1 year, married for two, you've been together for 3 years. But somewhere along the lines, halfway through the first 10 years that you're together, somebody's going to want more. And in that dynamic, at that moment, that's when the relationship starts becoming hard because the person who wants more is going to fight for more, even if they got to fight their partner to get more. And when you realize that the reason why we plateaued is because I'm dragging your ass, that's going to be when the relationship starts getting hard. And that is when you have to work over that hump, which we just had that woman a couple comments ago that was explaining how for the last year she was being an asshole and everybody in her after 20 years of marriage and everybody in her network is not socializing with her, not even her husband. And she's jealous of her husband's relationship with her friend when they've all been friends for 20 years and they've been married for 20 years. And it is what it is. You put yourself in that position. Steven says, I guess if I had a crush on a chick back in the day and got a shot at the same chick today, I might overlook things that has to be taken into account. So I guess I would have that phase. Bro, a crush is your emotional attachment, your lustful physical bond desire to be with this girl. And during the time of your crush, her unreciprocated feelings for you is you allowing her to reject you, still have strong feelings for her and not do anything about that. You will still show up. You will still perform. You will allow her to either ignore your feelings or reject you, and you still care for her. You will keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Now, at your current age, you're not going to put up with more than one rejection from the same person. If she don't look interested, you're not even going to try. If you try and she gives you a no one time, you're like, fuck it, I'm out. Because you have built resistance to the rejection. You have built self preservation from the rejection. But those crushes, because denial comes out in a lot of different ways. And before we acknowledge that we allowed ourselves to be played by a fool, we will downplay the scenario that we were involved in. And we might call them crushes. But when you had love for another person, or if you really just wanted to smash this person, the feeling's going to be the same, but she didn't reciprocate. That's why it's a crush. Your feelings were either not projected to her, so she didn't know, or they were projected to her and she didn't care. You never have a crush with your girlfriend. You never have a crush with your wife because the feelings are reciprocated. A crush is unreciprocated feelings. And if you had that crush for 6 months, if you had that crush for a year because you were back in high school or middle school or whatever the case may be, you had that crush in the 5th grade, you had that crush in the 9th grade, you had that crush in the 10th grade, you wanted that person and you just didn't know how to tell them, or you wanted that person and they just never gave you a response, or you wanted that person and that person just never said yes. But that person had a relationship with this guy, relationship with that guy over there. You might have had a crush on her, but she had a boyfriend at the time. You found out next semester that she has a new boyfriend, but you got skipped over. Like all of these scenarios are scenarios where you were in a situation where all the signs were there that this wasn't going to work for you, but you lingered hoping that it would. As an adult, the first 90 days of you involving yourself with somebody, that typically that's when that happens. And we consider that as a honeymoon phase because it doesn't happen a year into the relationship where you're ignoring stuff. You pay more attention to detail after the first 3 months of the relationship. The older you get, the more you pay attention to detail, but you start paying more attention to detail once you've had consistency. Consistency is the baseline. If you're dating a girl that used to cook at the beginning of the relationship and stuff like that, and she don't cook no more, you start thinking about, well, what the fuck happened? I used to get home cooked meals and now I don't. Comparing the baseline. Something happened where this one argument happened, and after that she stopped. Then you go over and be like, hey, well, what happened? Why are you no longer doing X, Y, and Z? That's when the excuses start rolling out. But it's because we have to establish a baseline. And it usually takes the statistical average is that it takes a relationship about 90 days to establish a baseline. But during that 90 days, there are no rules. That's a problem on both sides. There are no rules because the only thing that the men are chasing is the sex, and the only thing the women are trying to secure is the financial security. So as long as he keeps paying for things, she's got the financial security. And as soon as she says yes, he starts getting consistent sex partner. It's a relationship of convenience, but we're not paying attention to your pet peeves, my pet peeves, your bad habits, my bad habits. We're not paying attention to none of that, but once we start becoming dedicated to one another, once 6 months into the relationship, we start talking about moving in together, and then you leaving your dirty socks on top of the PlayStation starts becoming a problem. That's when we start working out the stuff that we ignored because in the beginning of the relationship, she was at your house and the dirty socks wasn't on the PlayStation. The dirty socks were just somewhere because she had nowhere to put her stuff in your house because she didn't belong there. So if her stuff was all over the floor, you would assume that's your fault because you took her clothes off of her. But when y'all live together and her dirty socks are on top of your PlayStation, you come to find out that's just how she is. And you're like, oh shit. It wasn't circumstance that she was leaving her stuff all over the place. It's because she's a slob, is why she's leaving stuff all over the place. That red flag was there from the beginning. You just didn't see it, right? Because the red flags are things that just doesn't work for you. A red flag doesn't have to be her being a hoe. A red flag doesn't have to be her being a gold digger. A red flag could be that she's disorganized and you're organized. A red flag could be that she takes a shower once a week when you take a shower every day. A red flag could be that she spends 4 hours a day putting on her makeup and you get ready in 5 minutes and she's never ready and you got to wait 3 hours and y'all are always late and you don't like to be late. He said moving in might be the real problem. But see, that's the thing. Cohabitation is an expectation for men. In our pack mentality, everybody that is involved in our pack is supposed to be in our house. Outside of our social network, our pack, our girlfriend, our wife, our baby mama on the side should all be in the same location where we can easily access them. People don't agree with this a lot of the times, but the truth of the matter is that when have you seen the King of the Lions somewhere away from the pack? When have you seen the leader of the wolf pack somewhere away from the pack? Everybody that is under the authority of the leader of the pack is in the same place. Everybody that's under the authority of the leader of the household, which should be the man more often than not, is in the same place. So ultimately, uh, 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 all of the people would be like the Crane Mansion. He had his wife, his second wife, his new girlfriend. All the women were in the same house with him, right? So in our monogamy economy, where a woman will move in and it's one man to one woman because it's socially unacceptable to have more than one person by law. So you can't marry two women in America unless you're Muslim, but you can have a wife and a girlfriend and a mistress. You move the woman in so that you can have direct access to your sex partner. That's what happens. That's where that comes from. She moves in so that you can start taking over her financial responsibilities because it's easier for you to pay for one place than it is for you to pay for two because you're broke. So since it's easier for you to pay for one place, she'll move in to secure her financial stability because now you're paying for the place that you was paying for before she got there. She just has less to pay for. You now have direct access to your sex partner because you're always in the same place when you're not at work. Convenience. He says Nick Cannon moving them in. Each one of the women that Nick Cannon sleeps with has the house and Nick Cannon's paid for. So it's still the same dynamic. Even though he might have different women in different states because he travels the country, the fact is that each one of the women that he has a house that he controls that he can go over there and smash those women because they have that understanding. Now, an ex who no longer affiliates with him, like Mariah Carey, might not be part of the collective, but any woman that was a social interaction, baby came out as a result, has no problem with him sliding back through and sliding in that while he's coming to visit the kids. He has that. He has, and one of the reasons why he would have that possibility is because a lot of the women that he got pregnant were not multimillionaire women, and as a result, him being a multimillionaire man can bring each one of those women's standard of living up above what they would have been had they not gotten with him. Each one of those women would not have an objection to him coming back around because it was a fling that led to a child that he's paying for her whole standard of living as a result of that child. What's to complain about? It wasn't a relationship that led in a breakup. It wasn't any type of deceitful situation. He came in having a good time, and that good time led to a financial responsibility for 20 years that he is actually taking over. So you don't even got to fight him for the money. When you don't got bad blood, you got 14 baby mamas, you got 14 sex partners. You can go back over there and sleep with any one of them. Because what do you care what they do when you're not there, as long as your children aren't being mistreated. Now, let's go ahead and touch base with the next one. Ooh, 2 hours. We got a bit of time. Did I hit the
Should I
button?
leave my partner? I
Okay.
36-year-old female have been with my boyfriend who's 35 for 3 years now. And until last December he was hiding some of the worst things from me. I promised I would never tell, so I won't be giving specific details. Essentially no loyalty and killed all my confidence and trust. The last several years I've been battling cancer. First high-grade endometrial stromal sarcoma, and then a secondary primary malignancy, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which has metastasized into my brain. I work at a hospital full-time, bought our home, all of our vehicles except one his father gifted to him, pay for majority of our fun family outings, stay in the gym, consistent sex drive. I try to be everything. I'm loyal, honest, and attentive, but maybe a little bossy, and I overthink. I love his
Bravo.
personality and am very attracted to him. I was recently accepted into a very competitive medical school program for the next several years. I have 4 kids, he has 1. I try hard to be a good mom and partner, but I feel extremely burnt out, taken advantage of, and hopeless. I want to move past what he did, but when I'm triggered he often says he's trying and doesn't deserve me being upset because he's really been trying to be good. I, however, am still very affected by what he did. I start school again at the end of June and I know I will be very stressed and spread thin. I don't know if I should stay with him and continue to try to work things out, or eliminate the stress and find my own way through life. I'm so scared I'm being stupid and I'm a couple of months he will let me down again. What do I do?
Um, okay, so it sounds to me like you're stressed and you're blaming him for it. It also sounds to me like he must have done something like I can't say that he cheated because you didn't just come out and say he cheated, but let's assume that he did. Um, what do you do about that? Well, if you have, he's got 1 kid, you've got 4 kids. Um, and you're saying that he's not loyal, so that means that he must have at least had an emotional bond with somebody that you didn't like because you're not available. You're busy. Between your healthcare treatment and your full-time job, and all of the kids, you don't have time for your husband. Now, you expect him to give you his undivided attention whenever you're available, but you're not really available. You're telling us that you're going to have an upcoming responsibility that's going to have you spread excessively thin. Now, the funny thing about that is that you are claiming to quote unquote do away with the stress as if he is the only thing that is stressing you out in your life. You have a lot of stress in your life because you're dealing with cancer and you've got this full-time job at the hospital. And it looks like you have a new position that's going to give you a larger workload and you still got to be a mother to your 4 kids that's probably got 4 different baby daddies. I think that one, you've already admitted to being a bitch because you've admitted to being bossy to your boyfriend, and that's not good in your relationship because there should be only one leader in a relationship. And if the leader of the relationship is going to be the woman, she is not supposed to dominate her husband. She's supposed to utilize him as the partner that she would have been utilized as because women don't want a man to be bossy to her. So the difference between administering instructions for aid in accomplishing goals, there should not be a dominating factor where you're typically forcing him to sit, stay, and beg like a dog because you wouldn't want to be treated that way in your relationship. So, from what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing, you have a lot of emotional issues in your relationship that your husband or boyfriend's needs are not being met effectively and his performance is not meeting your expectations effectively, and while he's trying to perform better for your expectations, you're not providing him through the resentment that you harbor any uh 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 emotional stability that would quote unquote keep him being good. Now, the problem with that is that if he still has this void that's not being met in his relationship, eventually he's going to fill that void somewhere else again, where you're going to again blame him for stepping outside of the relationship to find fulfillment because you don't have enough time between your health and your career to fulfill him in a relationship. Now, do I recommend breaking up with him? Not necessarily. But if you can't find time to improve your interactions with your boyfriend, then you need to find time to sit down with him and break up because you don't have the effort to put into the relationship. That would be my observation there. I see a very toxic person that's claiming, "Oh, lady, refund your money. This ain't the way to handle your problems." Well, how would you handle your problems? How would you handle having a very high demanding health issue and then a very high demanding career and then being parents, co-parenting a relationship where some children are yours, some children are not yours, and your partner is not performing the way you would want them to perform? How would you handle that? Because my recommendation is that you would work it out with them or just leave the situation because you don't have the ability to invest in the relationship the way the relationship needs investing. So you're claiming that this isn't the way to handle the problem. What better way do you have to handle the problem? Because if you say just up and leave, then you just reinforce what I said. If you say work it out, then you reinforce what I said because I said try to work it out with them. But if they're not going to work it out, where she's the one with the complainant must work it out because if the complainant doesn't work it out, then it doesn't work, right? And I've talked about this on the podcast plenty of times. The person with the complaint has the biggest problem, and the person with the complaint has to put effort into resolving the complaint. Otherwise, there will not be any change. So if that's not how you handle it, how do you handle it? And while this troller thinks about another way to comment in the comment section, ultimately we'll continue with the observation that true to life, there is no reason to get a refund because nobody paid for this information. This information came out for free. And then, secondly, that's exactly how you handle a relationship. You communicate with your partner, you communicate your discontent, but then you also recognize that it takes two of you to work out a relationship. And since it takes two of you to work out a relationship, you both have to put in effort to have the improvement. So if he's not doing what I want him to do, I'm going to have to change and improve too because there's a reason why he's not doing what I want him to do. Either I'm asking too much from him or I am doing something that is compelling him to not perform as much. Because if you are mistreating your partner, they may psychologically and emotionally shut down because they don't like the way they're being treated. You notice that they shut down. You're not satisfied with their performance. You start complaining about their lack of performance, but their lack of performance could be a byproduct to your behavior. So do you just do as this person is claiming and just put your foot down and demand them to do better? Or do you find out why they're not performing the way you expect them to perform? I would suggest that you would find out why they're not performing the way you expect them to perform. Either it's not inside of their capabilities or they've been encouraged not to. Ah, here's the irresponsible response. I'm going to put this up there on the screen. Is it she's financially independent, she takes care of everything, she's in 90-10 effort dynamic. Read what he says again. Okay, so let's look at the 90-10 dynamic from the perspective of the woman taking care of all the responsibilities. Now, I love the way you threw this in here. This is phenomenal. And the reason why this is phenomenal because the largest majority of society has the man doing the 90-10 work, and all the women will say that this type of behavior would be fair. So since the woman is doing 90% of the work and the man is doing 10% of the work, why wouldn't it be the responsibility of the woman to cooperate with the man and work out with the man what's not getting done, where they can redistribute the responsibilities in a relationship so that she has a lighter workload if her feeling is that she's being overwhelmed in the relationship because she has too many tasks to perform. She couldn't offset some of those tasks onto her partner who doesn't have as many tasks. which is the same thing that would have happened in a relationship where the man is doing 90% of the workload and the woman's doing 10% of the workload. And usually all the women do is just sleep with the man and just sit there. And the man is taking care of all the responsibilities. Wouldn't the man offset some of those responsibilities off onto the woman to bring that from being 90-10 more to like a 60-40 situation that still requires the same communication and it still requires the same level of effort in changing the way you do things with your partner. So instead of allowing them to do less and then resenting them because they're not doing enough, you negotiate with them for them to do more. And then you put that responsibility on their plate by not doing that anymore. And if they're not going to carry the weight, if they're choosing not to carry the weight, then you have to reevaluate your relationship and determine that I don't have enough effort for all of this and then walk away from it. But if you're not going to put the effort in, and you're not going to communicate and you're not going to change the responsibility distribution, you're unwilling to work out your complaint. So he says, LIM, you bum. Oh, well, here we go with the petty childish behavior. I never said what she should do beyond not listening to you. Exactly. So you're not trying to help anybody. You're just trolling the podcast. And I wouldn't be a bum just because you don't like what I say, because you got triggered 2 hours and 20 minutes into my podcast when I'm telling people how they can improve their relationships by changing their decision making skills. And then you're saying, don't listen to me. Don't change your decision making skills. Don't communicate with your partner. Don't renegotiate and redistribute the workload so that you're not overworked. Don't listen to me. I'm wrong. So how do you fix it if that's the case? I got one more I got one more of these, and then we're going to see exactly if you're going to actually put any information in here. So you come with real talk. How long you been married, buddy? So you don't have a response for that because you asked me how long have I been married, and which does not change the fact that I'm married 20 years. Does that change what I just told you? I'm married 20 years. Does that change what I told you? Because if it doesn't change what I told you, then at the end of the day, you're just trolling the channel. You're just trolling the channel. So I'm married 20 years. I'm telling you, if the workload is offset and you negotiate with your partner by communicating the stress that you're having, the overworked position that you're in, and request that your partner take a some of the workload off, you're asking me why? Why what? Why what? I'm giving you the opportunity before I block you so that I could try to get an understanding of where you come from because you came in petty. You have not answered any of my questions and you have not validated your feelings because you got triggered. Because I said that a person that is unwilling to work out their relationship should either abandon that relationship or rethink their position. But if she's carrying the majority of the workload, which is the normal dynamic that men are responsible for, is carrying the largest majority of the workload in a relationship. If you feel like the distribution of effort is not reasonable enough, then communicate with your partner and reassess the situation. Now, you have not explained to me, you're saying that you're not triggered, but you are because you stopped at this channel because I popped up on your For You page and you jumped in being petty. Soon as you called me a bum, you have to put up no facts on the channel. You're just claiming that I'm wrong because I hurt your feelings when you heard what I said on the channel. But you're not answering my question. You asked me how long have I been married? I told you 20 years. How does that make a difference with what I said? Now, since 20-year marriage is what's going on, how does that change what I said? I said communicate with your partner and work it out or leave. But communicating with your partner is not just go and tell them that you're unhappy. It is finding out why your partner's not performing the way you want them to perform, because that's going to be part of the reason why you're not satisfied. Because if your partner is negatively impacted by your behavior and that causes them to perform less out of resentment, then you have to work out your partner's problem so that your partner can perform the way you want them to perform. It's the same way in a business. If the employees stop working, like when Amazon, all of their employees went on strike because they weren't getting paid enough money, you're not going to say, oh, you better work or else. I need to find out why you're not working. You're not working because you're not getting enough from me, which means I need to give you what you're asking for so that you have no excuse to not give me what I'm asking for. And that's going to be the same thing in a relationship, is that if she's carrying 90% of the workload, he's only carrying 10% of the workload. One of the issues that they're going to have, she's not available because between going to the hospital for chemo and going to the hospital for work, she's spending the majority of her time at work, not enough time at the house. And when she's at the house, she's got 5 kids between her kids and his kids to deal with. And usually women prioritize the children. Nobody prioritizes the husband, and the man is going undone. Even though he might have 10% of the workload, he still has an emotional abandonment issue that he has to deal with inside of his relationship. And she's got to fix that in order to get performance out of him for him to do the things that she wants him to do. Because if he's resenting the fact that he feels left out in his family, then he's not going to perform as well as he would perform if he felt included in his family. So tell me how that's wrong. Because if the roles were reversed, and let's say that the man was a doctor, let's say the man was a surgeon, and the man's on call at the hospital 6 days a week, 18 hours a day, always at work. Let's say that the man, when he wasn't at work, he was at the house chasing his PhD. He rarely has 20 minutes with his wife at home. She's got 3 kids. He barely gets to see her because when he is at home, he spends time with the children. The dynamic would still be the same because he's spending 90% of his time not paying attention to his wife. His wife is going to still have that emotional void. He's going to have to fix that emotional void in order to get her to perform better. There's no way for you to set up a dynamic where, oh, the man's a piece of shit just because he's not contributing to the relationship as much as the wife. But if you flip the script and have the wife 10%, the man 90%, oh, that's the way it's supposed to be. No, it's wrong if one person is not contributing as much as the other person without reason. But if one person is not performing simply because of their emotional negative impact from the relationship where they're not getting what they thought they were supposed to have out of a relationship and they stop performing as a result. The same way an employee that's not getting paid enough money on the job stops performing as a result. Then at that time, you have to find out why they're not performing, and then you got to make changes in the relationship. So when I tell you that the communication is key and negotiations are necessary so that you can get what you're looking for out of the relationship by giving your partner what they need out of the relationship also, you're telling me that's wrong. How do you, what are you talking about? Okay, hold on. He says, look at you avoiding the fact you called her a vulgarity. I can call her a bitch all day long, or actually, I didn't call her a bitch. I said she was being a bitch, and that doesn't change anything because if you're being overbearing, if you're being a jackass in a relationship because you're mistreating your partner, she said she was overly bossy. She admitted that. You don't have to like the way I said what I said, but I'm not wrong about it. He said, that's why you got called a bum. So you're calling me a bum because you got triggered because I called the girl a bitch. Exactly. So you're acting on your emotions, but you have actually no validation for disagreeing with the fact that I said work out the relationship. He said, you're going nowhere fast. Can't spell that word. Okay. I appreciate you coming to the show. I just wanted to give you an opportunity before I did away with you. Um, People don't have to agree with me. I don't expect them to agree with everything that I have to say on a podcast, but I do expect you, when you do disagree with me, to justify your disagreement. If you don't like what I said because I hurt your feelings, then say that. But you can't tell me that I'm wrong simply because I hurt your feelings. And I hurt your feelings because I'm talking about how somebody else fucked up in their relationship, which got nothing to do with you because you flipped through the channel and you just fell into my channel. And now we're sitting over here having a conversation. This is a live podcast and we interact with everybody appropriately and respectfully. And at the end of the day, you don't have to have the same opinion as me for us to debate this on the channel. I did a 9 hour podcast with somebody else on the channel earlier this week because we were having an open discussion where he came in live. He clicked the link, he approved the mic, approved the camera, came in live, and we just started talking on the channel till like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning about all kind of stuff. And we did it with respect for one another. He didn't call me a bum. I didn't call him a bum. We didn't disrespect anybody. But there are times where people just don't know another way to get attention but to come onto the show and just try to chop away at the fact that their feelings is hurt. Look, when you jump on this channel and you got something to say what you got to say, but say what you got to say as it relates to the topic. Prove to me that communicating with this woman is not if this woman communicating with her boyfriend or her husband is not the way to go. But I remember FX Trader said earlier in the show that people in relationships, a man with a child should get with a woman with a child. That's probably the only time that you get in those relationships. As you can see, even in that dynamic, it doesn't always work out. Women with children prioritize their own kids before they prioritize their new partner, and they're going to prioritize their own kid before they prioritize their new partner's kid. If she's got health issues, she's got to prioritize, because cancer is a big thing to deal with. She's got to prioritize her health issues before she prioritizes her kids. So it's going to be her health issues, her career, her kids, his kids, and then him. He's at the bottom of the stack. And that's if they don't have dogs. He's at the bottom of the stack. If she doesn't have time, by the time she gets to him, he doesn't have anything. Whatever he does do, it's not going to be enough. And this is going to be one of the reasons why a lot of men do not encourage men to date women that have advanced themselves in their careers, because $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year women are going to hold a man to a whole different narrative of responsibilities that she would otherwise have not performed for her husband if she was in his shoes. Women don't know how to lead a relationship in a healthy fashion. They feel like a dictatorship where bossing the other people around is the way to lead a household. But they would not want to be bossed around in their relationship if their boyfriend or their husband was the leader of the household. The dynamic has to be universal. Whoever is in that leadership responsibility is supposed to have a certain level of decision-making skills that is supposed to be respected and followed by the dependents under that leadership. But there is supposed to be a level of delicacy in the distribution of information. While may I and please and thank you might not be words included in the distribution of delegation, belittling and degrading is not going to be included in that either. But this woman was so frustrated that she wants to leave the relationship because she was overwhelmed with stress. He wasn't the core of her stress. Her cancer was the core of her stress. Multiple different kinds of cancer that was the core of her stress. So she's potentially dying with a deadline. Her career is going to be another portion of her stress, keeping other people from dying while she's dying slowly. The advancements in her career, which is new responsibilities that she's not sure that she can handle while she still has her old responsibilities while she's dying with cancer. This is 90% of her stress. Then she has her kids' problems. She has his kids' problems. Before she even gets to him, his problems, and whatever the fuck he's doing, she's got too much stress between her health, her career, and her 4 kids. So if she got rid of her boyfriend and his child, she would not get rid of 90% of her stress. She would only get rid of the partner that will help her mitigate that stress. So when I say, yeah, she needs to stop being a bitch, I meant that shit. She needs to stop being a bitch and start cooperating with her partner and start putting more responsibility on him so that it's not 90-10. That way she has less stress on her plate. Getting rid of the extra person that can help you with your responsibilities doesn't relieve the stress. It makes it worse. But you negotiating, delegating, and cooperating with your partner would relieve the stress because you got less stuff to do. Right? So you got to think about that. All right, let's move on to the next one because we got a few more. I want to get through all of these today so we can get on a new set next week.
I'm a 33 married to a man that is also 33. We've been together 11 years this year and married for 10. We have a 10-year-old son, 7-year-old son, and 3-year-old daughter for our children. Over the last 5 years, I've been the one handling every aspect of the home, the children, and the mental load, while working full-time. Resentment has been building up over this time period, but it's really been in the last year that I've felt like I'm done. The marital attraction on my end has been gone for the last year or so, and I have no desire for any form of intimacy. Now, a few weeks ago, he told me he's sorry for all the things that he's done wrong in the last few years. Specific situations were named, and I do believe the apology is genuine. He listed several things he plans to do differently from here on out, and I do appreciate the thought and hope that these changes occur. However, I don't really feel like I want to fix the marriage. I want him to be healthy, and I want him to improve himself as a father. But I just don't feel like I want to fix us. I feel like such a bitch because he's clearly trying and wants to fix things now, and I just don't. I don't really have words to explain why I don't, but I know how I've felt for most of the last several years, and I just don't feel like I can go back, or that an apology and changing for the future replaces the past.
Okay, look at that. Now, she said it. I didn't have to say it. She's being a bitch. Why? Because you're being unreasonable. So I could probably rephrase it in a nicer tone, but there's no true nice way to tell somebody they're fucking up. Okay, she was in a relationship, she's been in this marriage for a very long time. First half of it didn't go the way she wanted it to go. Whether or not she articulated that to her partner or not doesn't change the fact that she built resentment over the years while it wasn't going the way she wanted it to go. At some point, she has emotionally checked out of the relationship, and for the last year, guaranteedly, she has completely detached herself from this relationship, but she is still physically in it, which is what a lot of people do. While she is emotionally detached from her partner, this is the moment where she can establish a new bond with somebody else. Whether or not she does is up to her. But because the resentment is there, she is unable and unwilling to allow for redemption. He cannot make up for what he did in the past or what she didn't like him doing in the past, even if he didn't do anything wrong in the past. If he's going to improve or make certain changements or adjustments since he recognizes the failures of his past ways, you can't change the past. And the past is not supposed to replace the future. The past is supposed to stay in the past. The future is supposed to be better than the past. But changing takes time. It takes 66 days to build a habit, and it takes twice as long to destroy a habit. So if he was doing things the way she would expect him not to do for 2 or 3 years in a relationship, it might take him a year and a half or 2 years to get it right. But you'll start seeing improvement, not drastic overnight change. You will start seeing improvement. You'll see better behavior. You'll see better anger management. You'll see better financial decisions. You'll see a better emotional involvement in a relationship. You'll see better attention. You'll see better encounters with you. But that stuff means nothing if you're not willing to keep the marriage going. And this is going to be a huge problem because as he starts showing improvement, he is going to be looking for the return on his extra investment, meaning that you've checked out of the relationship, the relationship is emotionally dead, physically dead. He's going to try to rekindle this relationship. He's going to make changes. He's going to put in the effort and put in the performance to make the relationship better for you. Happy wife, happy life. Now, your responsibility is to acknowledge that and then check the boxes of reciprocation as he shows improvement. You show effort in accepting that improvement. Otherwise, your best bet would be to get a divorce because if and you get the divorce before the man tries because you don't want because what she's doing right now is she's lingering in a marriage that she doesn't want. And as he puts in all of this effort to save his marriage, she doesn't want the marriage. So he could put in 5 more years of effort. He could do drastic changes. He could be way better in 5 years than what he was the first 6 years of his marriage. 11 years in, and you're still going to get a divorce. But what's probably going to happen is she's going to find somebody else. She's going to be in an emotional relationship with that person. Her husband might not find out about it. And if he doesn't find out about it, when she is emotionally ready to move on from this relationship and she has an exit plan where she can move in with her new boyfriend, that's when she's going to file for divorce. All the effort that her husband put into the relationship is going to be wasted effort because she wants out and she has not started looking for a way out. Now, that is a problem. Instead of wasting the man's effort, if you don't care if he improves, you want out regardless. Now is the time to tell your husband to go ahead and give you the divorce. Y'all can be friends as exes. He can work on his life, improve himself, and be better for the next woman and be a good father to his children. Y'all can behave in an appropriate and mature fashion in front of the kids, live in separate houses, and not have to deal with the resentment that's already harbored between you. Y'all might just separate and live in separate places for a few months where honest to God, that might actually benefit your marriage as opposed to getting a divorce if y'all just separated and you live somewhere else for 6 months. But usually what the problem is that when since you've already emotionally checked out of the relationship, if you go live somewhere else for 6 months, that gives you the opportunity to start sleeping around while you're married. And after you've gotten over the resentment and you miss your husband and you want to go back, you're not going to tell him about all the people you slept with while you were gone. But when you come back to the marriage, you might actually allow him to work on a marriage because you're going to be working off your guilt from cheating on him as he works off of his guilt of not satisfying your expectations. I don't believe that having an affair is the best way to resolve your issues, but I do believe that if y'all took a little bit of time apart so that you can get over your resentment, get a little bit of therapy, talk to the pastor at somebody else's church, not your church. Never talk to anybody in your inner circle about the failure of your marriage. You want to go talk to complete and utter strangers that have absolutely no investment in your life, in your reputation. That's the person you want to talk to. A completely non biased opinion. Why? Because your girlfriends are going to tell you to leave him because they don't want to be the only ones with nobody. You're going to have single mom telling you to leave them, single grandma telling you to leave them, single auntie telling you to leave them. You talk to some of the guys around the way, they're going to tell you to fix it. But the people who are giving you advice are going to be emotionally invested in one of the two people. If they're emotionally invested in you, they're going to tell you get rid of him. If they're emotionally invested in him, they're going to tell you to fix it. A third party is not just going to tell you that you should fix it. They're going to tell you how to fix it. Now, it's going to be up to you to try and fix it. But it's not going to be something that the man can do by himself. You guys have to be able to fix it together. Now, if you still don't want to fix it after you've gone through a little bit of therapy, he's still trying to improve, you can go to singular therapy. And then after doing a little bit of singular therapy to work on your resentment, then go to couples therapy. And if y'all can't work it out by the time y'all get out of couples therapy, go ahead and get a divorce. The divorce will be a lot faster because once you get the divorce after you've spent 12 months trying to work on a relationship, you would have covered a lot of areas that divorce would have forced you to do in the first place. Because if you just ask for divorce outright, they're going to give you 12-month period where they're going to force you to go through all of these steps to prove that you can't reconcile the marriage in the first place. And then they're going to grant you that divorce unless you guys do one of those no fault, yeah, we're just going to, everybody's going to agree to divorce. But if you say, I want a divorce, and he says, I don't want a divorce, I don't deserve this, he can fight against the divorce. And that could drag out in court for a long period of time. You would have to prove that divorce failed. So, that could be an issue. It's not always a cut and dry, like 15 minutes in Judge Joe Brown court, and then y'all are divorced. It's not always that way. It can be that way, but it's not always that way. All right, let's go ahead and touch base with the next one.
Does it bother you if she never or rarely initiates texts/calls, but she always responds when you do contact her? This is during the dating process within the first few months. Is this as a deal breaker for you?
Okay, to answer that question, no, it's not a deal breaker. It's not a problem for me. It's going to be a problem for you. But it's not necessarily a deal breaker. She's quick to respond when you reach out to her, but she doesn't put in effort to reach out to you. That means that you're something to do. You're not a priority. She does have enough interest in you, or at least she likes the validation from you because she's responding to you when you reach out to her. You guys have only been communicating on social media, texting back and forth for a few months. You have not committed to one another. You have not seen each other in person often enough to be each other's whole world at this moment. She does not have the direct emotional bond to you that prioritizes you over the other things that's going on in her life. So you are a back burner thought process. That's not a bad thing. While you guys have an open line of communication, your relationship hasn't gone cold, she hasn't ghosted you yet, you still have an opportunity to progress it into something more dominant. She also might be the kind of person that spends less time on her phone and more time in real life. She could be the kind of person that spends less time on her phone and more time on a video game console. You never know. Um, but the best way for you to address that situation is to put more effort into video calls, not texting. Put more effort into in-person engagements. Um, because the more you guys get to see each other and the more you guys get to talk to each other, the stronger your bonds can be. Now, the difference between a video call and text messaging is going to be the fact that you can have a 4 hour conversation texting back and forward, curating your thoughts, deleting the message, resending, and editing what you say so that you're always presenting your best self with the person when you're texting back and forth. But if you're video calling one another, you can probably only get 20 or 30 minutes worth of conversation in. To cover that 4 to 6 hours worth of texting back and forth, you're going to run out of things to say. You're also going to be able to talk genuinely with the person because you can't curate the first thought that came out of your mouth. Notice it's not the first thing that hit your mind, it's the first thought that came out of your mouth. Before you could think about what you said it, and your ability to maintain an interaction with that person throughout that discussion shows your ability to formulate a bond with that person. If you were able to dedicate 20, 30 minutes a day to communicating with that person on a video call until you can start doing, at least 1 or 2 days a week of in-person interaction with one another, even though you're not texting each other as much, you are still engaging each other often enough to know that this relationship does matter. But you have to progress it from digital to in person. If you're not capable of transitioning it from digital to in person, meaning she doesn't have time, she's always busy, she can't commit to a time and a date, then this relationship isn't going anywhere. If she would prefer to keep it on the channel, keep it on the platform that you guys are using, she's probably a bot. Because on dating platforms, they get paid to keep you on the platform. And a lot of dating platforms have you pay for the membership so that you can talk to people. So the longer you're on the platform, the more the platform makes money. And just like the longer you're on YouTube, the people who you're on YouTube watching make money. The person who's communicating with you could be communicating with you just because they have like 13 or 14 different cell phones here and they're communicating with everybody to make money. Yeah, that's wild. We covered that on the show before. Okay. Um so let's go slide in. That one was pretty easy. Let's go ahead and slide into the next one.
I am at the verge of losing my mind. I want to leave my fiancé. My best friend says I should stay and make it work. We have a 7-year-old to get, but I'm tired of him not being financially responsible. Feels like he does not want to make things work. He spends his money and expects me to help him with gas and other expenses because he spends his money within a week. Mind you, he makes way more than me. It has been ongoing. I have tried talking. I have tried sitting down and doing a budget together. Nothing works. We are always behind on mortgage and other bills. He uses his bonuses for whatever else he feels like instead of paying ahead or bringing bills up to par. Not sure what to do. If I use the joint account for anything, no matter the amount, usually cleaning supplies, rarely gas and groceries, he questions me to why and what I bought, even if he sees me walking in the house with what I have purchased. He doesn't care if my car needs maintenance or anything. Am I overreacting?
Actually, this is probably the first woman that has come onto the show and had a legitimate concern. Uh, so one of the failures that you had at the beginning of your relationship was that you got a guy that was spending a bunch of money on you and you thought, oh, this is going to be fantastic. Well, as I told you guys before, when you date a guy because he's spending a lot of money on you, and you think that exact same train of thought that this is going to be great, you're tricking yourself because specifically a guy that's willing to waste a bunch of money on you when you first meet is a guy that's willing to waste a bunch of money during your relationship, whether he's spending it on you, spending it on himself, spending it on other people. So he's not going to want you to control the financial narrative. Okay. You clearly don't want to put in more than what you're putting in to cover the financial narrative. You said that you tried a budget. That would have been one of my recommendations. You could change the way you do things, and instead of just trying a budget, you could have him. So here's how we change the budget scenario, because you guys got the joint bank account, and he should have discretionary spending limits. And that's probably one thing that you need in your relationship that you don't have is discretionary spending limits. He gets a bonus, it goes into the joint account. If he has a $300 a month limit of spending money, which is a lot of money, that's like $3,600 a year. That's it. If he gets a $2,000 bonus, he's still only get 360. He's still only getting $300 a month, and buy what you're going to buy with that. The rest of the money goes towards the house. You guys have to agree to that, and then auto pay everything out of his bank account except for the $360 that he's supposed to have in the account. Put all the rest of that stuff into the joint account, or have direct deposit into the joint account and then just wire transfer to his personal account $360. Next step you can do is cut up his debit card for the joint account so that he doesn't use the joint account instinctively. That will force him to have to use the personal account and then go directly to the bank to go and get cash for from the joint account. Okay. Now, you don't want to control him, but as we talked about on the show before, if you are long-term satisfaction and he's short-term gratification, this usually never works because you're going to be trying to micromanage the money for the future and he's going to be living in the moment. This could happen where the man was doing all the heavy lifting with financial responsibility and the woman was being financially irresponsible by spending all the money on hair, nails, trips around the world, and everything like that. Now y'all see how it happens in the reverse, where the man is spending more money than being made in a relationship and the woman is carrying the brunt of the responsibility, even though she makes less money. The situation doesn't change. It's very uniform. She is not going to be satisfied in this relationship until she can get the finances under control. Now, since it is just the finances, one thing that y'all could do to offset what he does is build up a brokerage account, which I know you're going to say that's hard to establish because he's spending a bunch of money. Talking to him about living off of the interest instead of spending the principal may convince him to change the way he uses his money, where he can put his money into the brokerage account and then take the dividends from the brokerage account and pay for his efforts. That will change where the money goes. If he puts $2,000 a month into the brokerage account, he's getting $200 a month back from the brokerage account. He would have more spending money every month from the interest, where the principal will continue to run firm. And if both of you are putting money into the brokerage account, where the brokerage account is paying enough money to pay for your standard of living, you won't be behind on the mortgage, light, gas, water, rent, car insurance, everything to that effect, which then allows for both of you to be in the position to utilize your money for something else, whether you use your money to continue to expand and he uses his money to live the life of Riley. The fact is that if y'all discuss investing the extra discretionary capital into a brokerage account where he then takes the dividend distribution and put that towards his entertainment, and also continue to set that cap at $300 a month. Or if you're going to go $400 a month, which is $100 a week, that anything over that $400 a week stays in a brokerage account. Then you can build the type of lifestyle where he has enough money to enjoy himself and y'all can get y'all's financial lives together. Now, if there's no other agreements, if the financial situation is still stressed, he's not changing financially, you can't make any headway. The only other option that you have, besides you covering the spread for him, which is going to leave a lot of resentment for you, is again to get the divorce. Because if you cannot under any circumstances force change from the other person. You can ask for it, but they don't have to give it. If you can make it make sense to them and they're willing to cooperate, then they can give it. But if they cannot give it, then you cannot receive it. And if you cannot receive it, you don't have to stay and be unhappy on a consistent basis, but you must try first. So you've done some stuff, but I recommend that you try this. Try, negotiating, reinvesting the dividends or reinvesting the discretionary spending into a brokerage account that pays dividends so that he can live off of his entertainment can cover or be covered by the dividends instead of the principal being covered by the dividends. Because also it could just be a spending issue where he's paying at the wrong time for something that he doesn't need, that he could wait on. So if you were to say, well, let's pay 2 months in advance and then make the reoccurring payments, where when he decides to go and buy something that he doesn't need to buy, that it's not negatively impacting the bills because the bills aren't due until next month. This month's bills are paid for. July is paid for. We're working on August bills right now. So if you take some money from the first and put it on something, the mortgage isn't late because we're working on August in July. Right? All right, let's touch base on another one.
How often do you see your partner? I love my husband, but I feel guilty that once a week seems to be enough for me. Me and my husband have been married for 2 years. We come from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds, and it definitely made our relationship more difficult. In the second year of marriage, we faced a lot of difficulties. He often emotionally vented out on me, and it influenced my feelings towards him a lot. At one point, he started to gaslight me. After a very tense argument and his attempt to gaslight me, I took my belongings and went away from our house. I rented my own place. I told him that I love him, but I would even consider seeing him again only if he goes to therapy. I also came back to therapy to have some support and survive that difficult moment. After a few weeks, my husband wrote me that he started therapy. After maybe a month, he asked me to talk. During that talk, he very seriously said that he had rethought his behavior, and he understood that he hadn't been a good husband. But he wants to be a better husband for me. After about 1 month, I agreed to try again. In his therapy, my husband found out some traumas, some issues. I don't want to go too much into his private details, but he's working on them. He realized that his attempts to gaslight me were a defensive mechanism. He told me that it doesn't justify what he did, that he is deeply sorry, and that he will do everything so it never happens again. And he actually never tried to do it again after that, and I appreciate his emotional growth. From that point, our relationship became better. There are some downsides, but we both are better versions of ourselves. Of course, people don't change their patterns fast, but I do see improvements in him, in me, and thus in our relationship. We are thinking about starting couples therapy to understand each other even better. Now to the main point. We still live separately, and we agree that we won't live together before we work on our issues in couples therapy. We both have busy jobs and we both have hobbies. Luckily, one mutual hobby is video gaming. And we both try to see each other as often as we can and spend happy time together. What bothers me is that after living separately, I've realized that I don't need to see my husband very often. I love him. I miss him when we're not together. I don't want a relationship with another man. But I feel like seeing each other 1, maximum 2, times per week is enough for me. When we see each other more often, I feel I have less time for myself, for my hobbies, and I sort of dissolve into him. The worst part is that I feel guilty about it. I have this voice in my head that tells me that when people are serious about their relationship, they want to see each other more and more often. And what if the fact that it's okay for me to not see each other often is a sign that I haven't gotten over our previous problems? Now, I talked with my husband about it, and he told me that the situation doesn't offend him. That if it's what I need right now, then it's okay, and maybe in the future it will change. But I can't stop feeling guilty. My therapist is on vacation. Even on the days when we don't see each other, we write to each other multiple times per day. We also now have a tradition that we have a video call every evening, sometimes just for a couple of minutes, sometimes for half an hour, depending on our moods. So I'd love to ask the community here, what do you think? Is it okay if you don't want to see your partner more often than 1 to 2 times per week?
Okay, so here goes person number two. Fantastic, fantastic. Um, so you guys had some. I think you're misusing the word gaslighting. I'm just going to start there. The whole time I was sitting here waiting on the ability to jump in here and say something about that. I think you're misusing the word gaslighting, because gaslighting is when you are psychologically and emotionally manipulating the situation to confuse the other person into believing a lie. Gaslighting is not him um, being nice to you to some degree and then um, treating you bad because he's venting, because you said he emotionally vents on you. That's not gaslighting. If he was not telling you the truth about certain things because he didn't want conflict with you, that's not gaslighting either. That's just straight up lying. Okay. Um, Gaslighting would be more to the magnitude of blaming you for his behavior. That would be more to the magnitude. Well, that's more projecting, but I mean, twisting the narrative for you to believe that it's your fault. That would be more gaslighting. He recognizes that the error of his ways negatively impacted the relationship, and he's allowing you, or you guys are agreeing to, but he's allowing you guys to stay in separate places as y'all work on the situation. You've harbored enough resentment from him that you would prefer not to be in a relationship with him, but you don't want to actually leave him. So you are more content with being by yourself. Um, One, because there's no stress involved with being by yourself. And after spending a number of months or years in the type of relationship where chaos came out of nowhere on a frequent basis, now that you are in a scenario where no chaos occurs and you two do not spend enough time together for the chaos to manifest, you are in a more comfortable position, which is a self preservation tactic. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now your concern is that you really only want to give them like 1 or 2 days right now. And most healthy marriages and relationships are like every day. We're in the same house on a regular basis. But let's be honest. If y'all live together and y'all don't, where you both leave the house at the same time, you both come back to the house at the same time, and you both have the same days off. If that is not the dynamic, typically one of you is going to get up before the other one and go to work. Then the other person's going to go to work. The person who left and went to work early, more often than not, comes back home from work early. Then the other person comes back home from work. Not all the time are you guys able to be in the same place at the same time, but if you are, you're able to sit, like you said, play some video games and go to bed. The only thing that you are missing out on right now is sleeping together in the same bed. And I don't mean the sexy time. I mean literally having somebody next to you, cuddling, being able to feel somebody else's heartbeat. That is the only thing you're missing out of the relationship. Because truth be told, if he works afternoons and you work mornings, you come back in the evening, y'all only see each other in the middle of the night when he comes in from work. If he works nights and you work days, y'all only see each other in passing. If you work the early morning shift and he works the mid morning shift, y'all see each other in the afternoon time. But you're only seeing each other for a couple of hours a day. It might be every day. You might see more of your partner on your day off when they've got to work, or on their day off when you've got to work. But the average person spends more time away from their house at work than they do at the house with their partner. So the only thing that you're truly missing out on right now is if y'all sleep in the same bed every night, which isn't that big of a deal because you're working out the resentment that you guys have in your relationship. So if you're going to dedicate 1 or 2 days where y'all are going to go out and do something special and not fight, that is fantastic. Then if you guys are going to talk on the phone, video call, a couple of hours or a few minutes every day or a few minutes every other day, so you might Monday, Wednesday, Friday video call, but Tuesday, Thursday hang out kind of situation. And Saturday and Sunday, we're just gonna like kind of get ourselves together personally and revitalize ourselves to re-engage with the other person. That's a fantastic way to go. you have distanced yourself enough. And the other woman that said, "Oh well, I've been emotionally out of my relationship for over a year." This is the exact shit that I was talking about. You're working on your relationship where you're far enough apart from one another where you're not allowing the resentment to continue to get worse, but you're close enough to one another to continue working on a relationship and make the relationship better. This is a fantastic phase. So my recommendation to the lady, keep doing it. Keep doing it because over time, if you guys continue to go through therapy, you continue to work on your relationships in individual therapy, but then start doing couples therapy where you guys start working on why you're not living in the same house and working on how to interact with one another, you may end up going back home because you have finally fixed the problem. I wouldn't go back into the same house without fixing a problem just to succumb to social expectations. No, you shouldn't be married and living in separate houses. You got plenty of people who are married and living in separate houses. You got plenty of people who are married and sleeping with people outside of the marriage and maintaining the marriage where the wife and the husband knows that the wife and the husband both have a partner that's not involved in a marriage. Don't pay attention to what society expects you to do. Pay attention to what works for you and what works for your marriage. So my recommendation is to keep doing what you're doing. Don't stress about it. All you have emotional availability for right now with all of the resentment is the 2 days a week guaranteed. Start there. Eventually, it may become a weekend. Eventually, it may become a vacation. Eventually, it may become a regular basis. As long as you have the longing and desire to go back home, even though you're not willing to go back home, you are still connected to the relationship to a magnitude where you can fix it, you can make it work. Just don't give up on it. He's being patient, you be patient too. So we've had what, 2, 3 good ones out of the last year. Most of them have been catastrophic, but these 2, 3, I think that was fantastic. I think that was very good. All right, that was the last one. We covered a lot of. Um, I don't have any other ones. Remember, tomorrow Monday, we're going to be covering the financial losses have changed recently. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow night, so y'all should come back to the show. We're going to be starting at about 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to start by saying tonight, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you guys this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by improving your financial lives, but also by improving your decision-making skills in your personal lives. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can make yourselves higher value women. One, by prioritizing your 20 or 30-year plan, and then reverse engineering that as to what you have to do today in order to get to where you want to be at in your future. While working on your 20 or 30-year plan, if you keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitor with the right personality and characteristics, then you will be able to observe that person's determination and dedication, his decision-making skills, which is highly important, his integrity, his motivation, his admirations on how he accomplishes his goals, and then see what his goals are and see if those goals mesh well with your goals. Because while y'all don't have to have the exact same goals, if your goals are both headed in the same direction, where you both are working on long-term satisfaction, not short-term gratification, because as you heard today, the husband with the short-term gratification goals and the wife with the long-term satisfaction goals were not meshing together, leading to resentment from her, right? So if both of you are not heading towards long-term satisfaction, then you will find a lot of frustration and struggles in your relationship. If you guys are both headed in the same direction, you'll find that you can accomplish each other's goals a lot faster. And I tell you guys on a regular basis that 2 people can make it to $1 million faster than one. You guys just have to plan and work towards that goal. Now, I want to give a special shout out to FX Trader, Steven, Michael, and OG Kicks, Omni81, Red Void, Danny Steffen. I really appreciate you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I see you guys tomorrow.
My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.